Good evening, and welcome to the December 17th, 2018 meeting of the Merrimack School Board. If you could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I flag the United States to the republic for one nation, indivisible.
Thank you. Item number 2 is public participation. Anyone that'd like to speak under public participation, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. If you're a student, just your first name and grade would be appropriate.
There. I live at 4 Hallett Way. I wrote it all down because I'm here today because I'm aware that the article of the turf field is on topic for the agenda. I was born and raised in Merrimack, graduated in 2000 from MHS, have moved away for a few years. I ultimately decided that Merrimack was the place to go and raise our kids. I have 3 kids in the Merrimack school system. My oldest is a freshman at the high school. My 2 younger ones are at James Mathcola. I wanted to stand up here tonight because I believe that something must be done about the athletic field at MHS, and I believe that the addition of the turf field is the answer. It would greatly benefit our players, school, and community if we had added this turf field. For me as a mom, my main concern is the mental and physical well-being of our athletes. My son had the privilege of playing for the Merrimack High School JV boys soccer team this past season. And I can say at the same time, as it was an amazing opportunity, it was also a very challenging experience as a parent. As a freshman playing on JV, my son did not know many of the kids on his team, except for a couple of the kids that he played club soccer with. You can imagine that he was under a lot of stress when all of a sudden, last minute, he would get a last minute message saying the game has been, the transportation for the game has been canceled. Figure it out. And our wonderful team mom, Carrie Jason, and some of the other parents would gladly pitch in and try to find a ride. But as a parent that works at a federal office, with access to a phone all the time, I'm stressed out all the time at work, trying to figure out, my kid going to make it to the game? Is he not going to make it to the game? Surffield is that good for GPS? My freshman son needs to be focused and being present in the classroom. He needs to be able to pay attention to his teachers. He needs to be able to learn what he's learning. Not worried about whether or not his phone's going off because he's trying to ride because transport was canceled. We were very lucky this season to have Carrie Jason and the parents pitch in to take him to the games. But without those parents, my son would have missed his supposed home game because they're in Bedford. Another aspect to consider that our home field is the Bedford GPS. Sure, it is a beautiful field, but we live in Merrimack. We don't live in Bedford. So our home field should be in Merrimack. Players go to MHS, their friends go to MHS, their teachers go to MHS, to work at MHS. If their friends or teachers wanted to be able to see a home game, they have to drive to Bedford GPS field. They can't just walk out of the school and go watch a home game and support their team, which is very disheartening. I can't imagine being a player that you play for a Merrimack High School and you have to leave the field and your friends can't come and watch cheer you on because you're all the way at Bedford. Not to mention they are our biggest rival, and I can't imagine that they enjoy doing that. I think that it's just not right in my opinion, I think that it's a temporary solution that we have Bedford GPS as our home field, but it's a solution we can solve by adding the turf field to the Merrimack High School.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak under public participation? If there are others, I know you have one coming up. You can absolutely line up and queue up so that way we would have fewer gaps between comments, but welcome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joellen Manhart, 9 Pollard Road. I was here ago, probably 5 weeks ago, at the first meeting, and I just want you guys to see how many people are here. We're very passionate about this turf field, and my husband and I have raised 4 kids here at Merrimack, and we're invested in this community, and thank you for giving consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lynn Angelo, 98 Bedford Road. We're new to the area. We just moved here at the end of June. I have a junior at Merrimack High School, and I have a 7th grader at the middle school. We came from turf. We came from Pennsylvania. We came from turf, and to me, it brings the community together with the kids. When we came here, there was such a disconnect between the boys, even like just I didn't plan on talking, so this is all like whatever. So there was just such a disconnect in the community to me when we had to go somewhere else to play and not at our home school. There was like very few parents, no friends were hardly ever there to watch the boys. And I don't know, I just feel like turf is going to be really physically even be better for the boys and the girls. I don't know. It was hard for me to come here and see that the kids don't even play at their high school. And we're paying all these taxes and there's nothing for the boys. They have to go elsewhere to play. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak under public participation? Seeing none, we will close public participation. We'll go on to item number 3, which is the parents' response to the board regarding fundraising efforts to support a turf field at Merrimack High School. And we invite to the table Carrie Chasen. And Carrie, as the sponsor of this agenda item, if you're bringing parents with you, if you would not mind introducing them. Thank you. Carrie, we just want to make sure your green lights are on when you're speaking. So the button that glows up.
Hello.
You are good. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carrie Chasen. Do I say my address? 19 Power Circle. This is Brian Miller. Your green button. Say hello.
Hi, I'm Brian Miller from 12 Handsome Drive.
And I'm Reagan Lopez from 58 Lamson Drive.
Okay. So, I'm here tonight with other supporters of the new turf field at the Merrimack High School. A few weeks ago, the school board agreed to move the turf vote into the 1920 capital improvement budget. And we would like to thank the board for that vote and the agenda time for the opportunity to respond to that. We're here because of what the new field will provide. Merrimack High School is the home of many students that we would love to see on the field and on the sidelines as part of the athletic community efforts and spirit. As we are aware, we have most, if not all, of our games off school site because of the grass field. Currently, Merrimack High School is a grass field that allows for minimal use during the season. We're excited about the opportunity to have a turf field, a field that will allow use almost year-round and to multiple sports. I think Brian wants to talk a little bit about what the turf field can offer and what it allows.
Thank you, Carrie.
No problem.
So my name is Brian Miller, again, 12 Handsome Drive. I've been in Merrimack for 8 years, and I've been the head coach for boys lacrosse at Merrimack High School for 7. I've been coaching lacrosse for maybe 16, 17 years now in the area. So I guess my job tonight is to share with you how a turf field would impact my program specifically, since that's what I can speak to. And it's really nice to hear from parents to start. I am often very busy in the spring managing practices and games and changing schedules and all that. And it's easy to forget how the folks on the other end who are carting my boys around are impacted as well. So a little bit about our program. We have about 50 boys We have a varsity and a JV program. And right off the bat in our preseason, we spend a great deal of time of fundraising so that we can rent fields in neighboring communities. We have gone everywhere, all over southern New Hampshire during my time as head coach. We've gone to PMA down in Hudson when they started up their turf. We went to Riviera University for a couple years. We went to the Sportsplex in Bedford. And now for the past, I think, 2 years, 3, including the upcoming season, we'll be going to GPS as well. In a very small time slot they have for us after school when we can all kind of rush up there. So for us, we spend anywhere from $3,000 to $7,000 or $8,000 each spring on some kind of turf rental for our preseason. That could be any. Ideally, it would be for as much time as we can get based on the amount of money that we've raised, and every year that's a little different, depending on a variety of factors, of course. And it's a challenge for sure. Prices change every year. Facilities rules change every year on who they allow in and who they don't, and what their schedule's like. So it's tricky. And once we're sort of out of time there, we go back to our home, which is usually Smith Gym. And while Smith Gym is wonderful and a nice place, and Mr. Grenier helps us out there, it's still a gym, and we're a field sport, and it's a small gym, and we have big high school boys, and usually, we have more players on a field than we do a basketball court, right? So it's challenging for us to hold an effective practice indoors like that. And for me, the biggest thing what a turf field would provide is simply access and availability, really. More time on a field, more access to it. Because even once we get sort of out of Smith Gym, and that's always sort of this long waiting period, right? We rent what we can. We go to the gym. We go to the gym afterwards, and then we're in this waiting period, this holding period, where I'm emailing Mr. Susi or texting him, every day. Hey, how's today looking? Are we gonna get the field today? And it's not really his call, of course. It's a variety of people who are coming together to make that decision on when the fields are released. But it usually takes a while. And for us, the last couple of years, the way the weather has been, it's been challenging to get out there on the field early enough in our season to have some decent practice time. So then mid-April comes around, and maybe we're on a field, and our game season has already started 2 weeks prior, right? So we're almost halfway through the season, maybe. We've played 5 to 6 games, and we've had maybe 1, 2, 3 field practices. Pretty tough when you're a field sport and you're practicing in a gym. Challenge for us, of course. And then, every time there's some more inclement weather, again, challenging because the field might get shut down. Of course, I get it. They got to do it. A lot of people want to use the fields. They want to keep them nice. But again, that just impacts our program. And then, same deal with games. Again, weather comes in, it might shut down the high school field, and so on. So that's a little bit about how it impacts my program specifically. I know the girls, although I don't coach the girls lacrosse team, they're pretty much in the same boat as us, practicing off-site, renting turf off-site, dealing with the same, field closures as us.
Awesome. It's me
No.
now. Not me. Go ahead.
I thought of something else I needed to say.
Oh.
So I just wanted to say, as far as expanding within the Merrimack High School, that this turf field, if voted in, could also provide opportunities in scheduling for the MYA, which, obviously expands our community and creates support there. The scheduling options, although I haven't had a chance to speak with our AD, I thank him for being here tonight. Scheduling options for possible outside events and tournaments and scrimmages are also possible. And I do need to mention, obviously the safety of our children and not transporting them. It's kind of what my message was from day one on this, was the safety of our children. And being a controller, I can also support the money savings and alleviating the cost of bus transportation. Because right now it's $325 for a bus, and we could save over $60,000 if we weren't transporting our students to this off-site field. Now I'd like my friend Reagan to speak.
Hi, I'm Reagan. I have two boys. One's 8th going into 9th. He'll be playing football, hopefully, in the fall. And then I have a soccer player who is a sophomore this year. But I just wanted to thank everyone for being here, the members of Park and Rec and parents of the community, coaches, our AD is here. We're all representing football, lacrosse, soccer, and band, everything you can think of. We all have multiple kids playing multiple things. And I just wanted to mention that we are, we have already started initiating the fundraising campaign for this initiative. And we have we're working on a signed petition for a warrant article, and it has a minimum of 25 signatures, which we are more than confident that we'll get more than 500 of those. And then for our we're approaching corporate donors and for Merrimack businesses, which I also own Be Well Studios in town, so I represent the town local businesses here. And then, so we're really trying to alleviate anything we can from the taxpayers in this. And with all the different sports, all the different kids and levels in this town, we really deserve this. So we're going to really work towards our goal together for this program. And we have, yeah, go ahead.
So we are getting the petition warrant article, which Christy Gallagher was nice enough to bring with her tonight. I just wanted to publicly read it quickly, just so that everyone here and watching understood what the intention is to be on the vote. The question is, shall the district raise and appropriate the sum of $1,200,000 for the design, construction, purchase, installation, and original equipping of a new artificial turf field for Merrimack High School? And furthermore, to authorize the school board and school community support groups to apply for and obtain any donations, gifts, devices, bequests, grants, etc., which may be available for said project, and expend any such donations, gifts, devices, bequests, grants, etc., for the purpose of designing, constructing, purchasing, installing, and equipping the new artificial turf field. And that is when we will ask for registered voters and get their signature on that to accompany. Just ending on a personal note, you know, I became personally involved with this effort because of soccer. My son plays on the high school soccer team, and I had the opportunity to help the school team this year with communication and organizing events. When you sign up to be a team mom, you expect emails about the game, calls about the coach, and plans about pasta parties. What I wasn't planning on was the daily calls to reschedule the game due to field conditions or organizing transportation for 17 boys to get to their home field. Most of the boys on the team are too young to drive, but they're given the responsibility to find their own way. A school-organized sport, a home field 6 miles away, a bunch of teenagers. Double that number for working parents. So there's me and Coach talking more about how to get the kids to the field on time and safely than the actual game of soccer. With the turf field, this would allow our Division I soccer players to have a home field. This will allow our boys to not spend added time on private group chats, and I am part of that private group chat, so I hear them, trying to find a ride along during the last class of the day. This will allow our community to come around a true home field to support our young athletes. I'll continue to speak the same message. The safety of the children is my #1 concern. I want problems of field conditions, problems of bus driver availability, problems of scheduling to be part of our history and not of our future. And that's my story.
And I just wanted to say one more thing to add to Carrie. I was thinking the same things with the safety. So we were also talking about you having MYA also participate in the field. My kids both played soccer growing up through Merrimack, and the field conditions are ridiculous. Like, they really could get hurt on these fields. And the fact that we would have a turf field that possibly on the weekend when it's not busy, the MYA could use is huge. And then both of my kids play Division I elsewhere sports, and to come home to have the fields that we have is ridiculous. We have, but then I was also thinking on all these sports, we always think of soccer, obviously, football, obviously, lacrosse. My son plays baseball, and the fields are awful. They cancel the games because of the weather all the time. And if we had a turf football field, they could do skills on this field in the spring, alternating with lacrosse. Like, this is, there's so many options for this field to be used, and it's not going to be empty. Like, there's so many kids, so much talent in this town. I mean, that's all.
Thank you.
Just thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the board? Andy?
So I'd like to thank Carrie and the other parents at the table and in the audience for coming. So just a little background for folks that might just be tuning in. A few weeks ago, the first time this topic, well, the turf field's been talked about for several years. And recently it came up as a topic when we started talking about transportation of students to home games that were off site, like GPS for soccer, among others, and practices. And actually our budget for this year has a proposed increase of nearly $64,000
Yes.
in the budget to be able to accommodate that based on the discussions that we had previously to it. At the same time, we talked about the turf field and how it could alleviate a lot of this by being able to really utilize that field, not 24/7 necessarily, but all the time. There's no downtime to the field. There's a lot, scheduling would certainly be a challenge, but we certainly could use it a lot. And it could be done every day. You don't have the period of time from like when the snow melts until June that nobody can use the field. I mean, anybody that's been to graduation know the field looks really good in June. That's because nobody's been on it for like 3 months before that. So there's a lot of time that can be used in spring, a lot of time in fall with football. So there's a lot of benefits here. But we also know that putting the field on strictly only for taxpayers would be perceived by some to not necessarily be in the best interest. I mean, there's some people that don't like us to spend this much money, which is why what you guys are talking about in terms of fundraising and other ways to bring money into this is really one of the key pieces I want taxpayers to really listen to, because the warrant article is written in such a way that not only do we raise and appropriate the money for the field, but also to ability to ongoing receive the activities that the parents and the other booster clubs might be doing to bring funds in to offset it. So one of the things I want to do is put our Assistant Superintendent of Business, Chevenel, on the spot to explain the way that the warrant article is written and how we would handle receiving donations and sponsorships and other things like that, both this year and an ongoing basis, and how they could be attributed and utilized for this field.
Well, you see, from what I heard listening to the warrant article, it's to raise the whole $1.2 million. And then I would imagine it would be dependent upon how the group would collect the money. Would they collect pledges, wait for the article to pass, and then collect on those pledges? Or would they create their own 501c3 or something like that, or use the individual booster clubs' 501c3s to collect the money and then to have it there available, when and if the article passes?
But my question is, I mean, so they've got to figure out how they're going to get the money and what they
Yes.
do with it. But how does the school district then take the funds that they would want to give to us so that we
Oh.
can receive them and do it? I mean,
It
I
would
just want to
be-
make sure that people understand how that money
It would be as simple as a gifts and grants form filled out from them to the school board, and we, the school board, would accept those monies. It would, let's say it's over $5,000, so anything over $5,000 has to be a public hearing. So we would post it up in the newspaper. There would be a public hearing. It's not as onerous as it sounds. It's just like a regular board meeting. But then it would be accepted at the public hearing. The board would thank you very much for your contribution to be applied towards the turf field, and then they would vote on it the same night and accept the funds. It's as easy as that.
Okay, I want to make sure people understood the connection, because as they go to procure money, I mean, you're right, you don't want to, if you get bids, pledges and things like that ahead of time, you've got to wait till it passes before you probably want to start collecting on them, receiving the money to do that. But if it does, then there's probably going to be ongoing work. I mean, it's not going to happen like overnight.
Correct.
There'll be an ongoing effort. So and the school district could receive ongoing even beyond the fiscal year
Yes,
change.
it doesn't have to be a one-time year.
Right, okay.
Because a one-time thing. Petition warrant articles, the special warrant articles, it would be our thought that, and Tom, you can look at me if I'm not saying this truthfully, okay? To complete the project, if it does pass over the spring, summertime, to have it ready for the fall. So, obviously the money would be spent in that fiscal year, but if there was something that needed to be done and there was money left over in the project because of donations that came in, the board could vote to encumber those funds and carry those over to another year to make further improvements that need to be made to that facility. That's why I think the phrase original equipping is in there, because it's just not the turf field. There's a lot of other accoutrements that goes with a turf field that have to be put in place.
Right, but just to clarify, if, let's pick a number, let's say $200,000 were to come from the parents group, we know we'd raise the money from taxation based on the way the warrant article
Yeah.
is written. But we could use that $200,000, if we'd already spent it, we could use that and vote to offset taxes with that money as well.
You
Could
set
we
the,
not?
we set the tax rate in October.
Right.
So if there were before October, that's when I do my estimated revenue. And if there was if they brought in $200,000 before October of 2019, and we had that money, I would put that as an estimated revenue
Mhm.
because I know I'm going to get it.
Right.
Right. And then it would reduce the amount that we actually raised from taxation. So it would offset in the same year that you're making the expenditure.
Okay. Thanks. I'm done.
I'm sure I didn't explain that well, and it was kind of complicated, but the money would come in, I would anticipate it would be taken off the bottom line of the cost of the track. Maybe that's said
Field.
better. The
Track's done.
field. Track, that was a couple of years ago, right?
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
already been
Yeah.
there. Okay, so I think Cynthia's hand was up.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I mean, the first question I have is, how do we, it's a collaborative discussion that we're having, and so how do we best support the efforts as a district? So I guess I would throw that out there to the group collectively of, what would you like to have from the district in the way of support, committee work, things like that, to minimize any confusion? So I'm curious regarding our thoughts on that.
Well, the first thing I would say is we have 2 members of the board that went to an initial meeting, and one is our planning and building committee liaison, and one is our parks and rec liaison. So you could not have asked for 2 more appropriately invested members of this board, coming to get a good understanding. And whatever further meetings you have, I'm sure they are welcome to attend. Based on that, I know as a chair I normally take public input, but I'd be a 3rd member of the board doing that. So for the sake of avoiding quorum, what we'll do is we will make Vice Chair Andy Schneider the primary contact for any parent or anyone that is interested in the turf field committee work, fundraising efforts, organization. Feedback even, we'll actually just farm that through Andy as our Vice Chair and one of the 2 liaisons that actually attended your meeting to get some understanding of what you're looking for. So with that, I think you do have 2 very good resources from the board from 2 very relevant perspectives. And I think that, that support going forward will just make sure it's streamlined so that there's not a majority of the board deliberating on this issue. So as long as that's okay with you, we'll make Andy your primary liaison as far as communication to the board. And then, of course, Brandy as well for input, because Parks and Rec is a huge part of what, our students are involved with. And I think between the 2 of them, you're going to get some really good resources.
Yes, I would agree with that. And just the the connections that they both have to with the other groups as well, because
Mhm.
that's really what we're trying to do is involve the entire community in this, not just, Carrie Jason.
Absolutely. And as I think, you mentioned, and we agree with you completely, it is a community resource. Just as the track that we did a couple of years ago as a community resource. It's used throughout the year. So knowing that there's a better resource for the community to use, even if it's for, morning yoga stretching, whatever, you do before your walk I think the ideas for it are boundless. So with that, definitely, but make Andy your primary for any communication that comes from the community. So in that way, we don't have a quorum deliberating on that issue, if that's okay.
Perfect.
Beautiful. Are there any questions or comments from the board on the presentation tonight and ideas going forward? So I did see one more thing, and then Brandy. So I didn't mean to cut you off. So sorry.
No,
it was your
that's
mic.
okay. It's all right.
You bet.
And I was just going to request that maybe you could walk through. I think there's a lot of parents and people here that may not normally get involved in this whole budget process, and there's a lot of things that happen throughout over the next several months. So I wondered if you could put some transparency around that. One of the things in particular, since we had moved it up, and I've heard some talk of a petition warrant article, because usually the warrant articles we'll put on for warrant articles, and then there's that whole process that goes with it. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that, and just so that the folks in this room, again, have that transparency of what happens from now until April at a high level.
Sure. Throughout the next few weeks, we will be going through budget hearings. They actually start tonight with food service and maintenance. And for the next few weeks, we'll be going through the budget book. Every school, every department will be presenting to us the ticket items for their buildings or their departments. And at the end of it, we're going to go through warrant articles. And there are two types of warrant articles, one that is developed by the board and one that is developed via petition. Knowing your declared intent to have petition warrant article, the board would take a position of not petitioning a warrant or not presenting a warrant article, so we didn't have competing items on the ballot, so that we can have it focused. And I think that would be the best use of all of our time. So with that, we will have a night where we go through warrant articles toward the end of our process. That basically how we're going to what's going to go on the ballot and the board's position on that. Once that process is done, the budget goes to the budget committee. The budget committee goes through a series of hearings, and at the end of that, they also go through the warrant articles, and they also take a vote on their position on those warrant article items that do have expenses associated with it. Anything that does not have an expense associated with it, you would not see the budget committees having a vote to it. And at the end of that, you will have the budget, and it will go to the deliberative session. The deliberative session will be in March, and I have it right, March? Well, first of all, so February would be when we finalize the budget. March would be when we have the deliberative session. That's where we have it at James Mastrocola Upper Elementary School. And anything that is on the preliminary ballot is discussed in an open forum and can be edited. So as long as it goes with the intent of the article, articles can be edited. And from there, it will go to a final vote with whatever comes out of that deliberative session is on the ballot as a permanent item. So with that, there's definitely steps along the way where support is needed, communication is needed, and then at the end of it, I think campaigning is needed. Obviously, when you're talking about something like this, it's a big item. It's a big change for our district, just the way kindergarten was, and being able to plan for that's basically the process we'll be going through. I don't think I missed anything.
Could I
Sure.
just speak one?
Yep, absolutely.
Would you mind, Mr. Schneider?
No.
No, thank you. It's important for you guys to be at the deliberative session, because even though the article, it can be amended, but the purpose cannot be amended. So if it's raising $1.2 million for the field, you can't change it to do a lease purchase with a non-appropriation clause to raise 1.2. You have to just raise the money. But somebody could say, I don't like the $1.2 million figure. I'm going to make it 200,000. And that is not a change in purpose. But that ultimately negates you getting a turf field, because you can't get one for 200,000. That's why the deliberative session is very important, to make sure any of those kinds of amendments that may come up, not saying they will, but I've seen it before. I've been doing this for 25, 27 years now, so that's something that you should be aware of, that the amount of money can change. So that's why it's important if you, the petitioners, should be there.
Is it the budget committee that runs that?
No,
We run the
it's
deliberative
the school
session.
board.
Okay.
It's the moderator.
Moderator.
The moderator,
Sorry,
yes.
you're right. We're on the stage, though.
Yeah, they're on the stage.
So, Andy?
Yeah, just a little bit on the timeline. So the budget committee will get the operating budget in the end of January. The deadline for petition warrant articles is February 8th.
February 8th,
February
yes.
8th. So sort of logistically what happens is we work on the operating budget, we get done with it, and then we hand it to the budget committee. In parallel, the other warrant articles sort of delay behind it, and we will review the warrant articles likely in early February, and then hand those to the budget committee near the end. So just a little bit of a change in the order. So the budget committee does what we do, but the order is a little bit different. But the key will be to get as many signatures as you can. I mean, you know, you talked 500. I mean, as more as you can is important, because showing the intent to the other voters of how many people are behind this is important. Talking about the fundraising is going to be important as part of your promotion of this. Even though the warrant article just talks about 1.2 million, the talking about how you're going to try to offset is going to be the key. Having people at the deliberative session to make sure that somebody doesn't try to change the amount is going to be important too. That's sort of what anybody who's been at a town meeting understands, that sort of thing. And then having people obviously at the election in April. So those are sort of the steps that people can take to continue to promote, look at ways of bringing money in. I mean, the nuts and bolts are in place to receive the money, work to get it, and also work to promote it to make sure that it passes in April on the ballots. That's sort of the steps.
Right, and we will be going through that calendar tonight on agenda item number 8. And I have not forgotten your hand was up, Brandy, so you are next. Was there anything else, because Cindy, you technically still have the mic? You're good, so it is yours, Brandy. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that showed up today to discuss this, or at least participate in the presentation of it. I hear some common themes, which number one would be safety, and I think that is anything that we can do as a district to ensure the safety of our children, I think is truly important, whether it be in games or in transportation to games. I think that is a relevant discussion to continue having. I also feel very strongly that anything we can do to better the facilities that our children are playing in, learning in, whatever it may be, is a valid discussion to continue having. And the more support we get from the community to improve our facilities, to improve our infrastructure and our fields, or anything that we can do to best support our children as they're growing and being educated, is truly valuable and super important. So I thank you guys for the presentation and for your commitment to helping improve our district.
Well, now I'm glad you went last. That was a perfect wrap. So thank you very much. More to come. And obviously, agenda item number 8 will definitely frame the season that we have ahead of us. So thank you all for coming, and thank you for presenting.
Thanks again.
Excellent. We're on to item number 4, which is the request from Reeds Ferry School Educator to conduct survey of educators for doctoral study. And we invite to the table Christine Tebow. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you very much for having me here this evening. My name is Christine Tebow, and I currently teach kindergarten at Reeds Ferry School. I am also finishing the 4th year of my doctorate program at Rivier University, where I am pursuing my doctorate of education. Before I begin, I would like to take an opportunity to thank Superintendent Jeffrey, Dr. McLaughlin, and Dr. Schoenfeld for their support and guidance during my preparation for this presentation this evening, and a special thanks to my principal, Kim Yarlott, and some of my colleagues that are here tonight. Conducting a research study is essential for the completion of my doctorate program, so I've come here tonight to ask for your consent to conduct this study in Merrimack. And my hope is at the end of my presentation, you will understand why I want to focus on Merrimack for my research, the purpose of my project, the purpose of my design, proposed surveys, the educator participation, and my responsibilities as a researcher. So why Merrimack? I've been a resident in Merrimack for 10 years. I'm also been an educator in the district for 9 years, and as I said before, I currently teach kindergarten at Reeds Ferry. I also have 2 children that are currently in the district. My daughter is in 8th grade, and my son is a sophomore. For the last 4 years, the school district has graciously allocated graduate course money for me for the past 4 years that have contributed greatly to my doctorate work at Riviere. Right now in the district, we have significant social and emotional well-being initiatives that are going on. I believe that my research will benefit the district. I think it will be valuable since the well-being of educators has been suggested in the research that it does impact student achievement and student learning. My research the past few years has evolved, focusing on teacher well-being, teacher burnout, and also positive psychology. Research suggests that emotional exhaustion and burnout in educators can affect their ability to meet curriculum standards and academic achievement. It's also characterized, teaching as a profession that's been characterized by high levels of burnout and emotional exhaustion among teachers. And positive psychology interventions have been used as tools to enhance employee well-being, job performance, and diminishing stress and burnout. And I will now give you a little framework of what my study will entail, and then as I go on in my presentation, I'll break it down. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to have an experimental design study where I will be concentrating on the population of teachers in preschool through 8th grade. Preschool through 6th grade. I would invite them to participate in a study. After they agreed, they would fill out a consent form and a demographic online. My participants would be randomly put into 2 different groups, one being an intervention group and one being a control group. Both groups will fill out 2 different scales. I'll get into the definition of those scales in my next slide. Educators in the intervention group will receive daily emails to participate in my positive psychology interventions, where the control group will be participating daily in another activity. After a 4-week period, I will run analyses to see if there's a difference between the groups. In my overall timeline, I'd like to run this study, if possible, between mid-March and mid-May, not for the whole 2 months, just for a 4-week period. My proposed due date for my dissertation, after I collect all my research and write my dissertation, hopefully will be December of 2019. I'll be presenting that. So talk a little bit about the surveys. It will be educators only. The demographic survey really is just collecting demographic information on my participants, their age, their gender, race, years of teaching experience, how long they've been in the Merrimack School District. The PERMA profiler is actually a well-being measure that is used to assess well-being across many different domains. And then the modified differential emotional scale is actually specifically for 20 specific emotions. The reason why I want to use both the PERMA profiler and the MDAS is when you're dealing with positive psychology and positive emotion, it's presented in the research that different things like engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment, all those things kind of work together. So I feel that bringing in that other scale, I'm kind of bringing more, latitude to my study to be able to see more than just, measuring somebody's specific emotion, but to really see how that's going to impact them further than just that one thing. To talk a little bit about positive psychology. Positive psychology isn't really a new concept. At the end of World War II, theorists such as Maslow were beginning to focus on what was right with people instead of, trying to fix people, but they really started focusing on positive strengths of people. Well, years later, Dr. Martin Seligman began his research early in the 1990s along the same lines. He was a psychotherapist out of the University of Pennsylvania, and began thinking to himself as a psychologist the same thing, that I'm taking care of all these people just to give them, different ways just to get by in life. And there's got to be more than just me trying to fix people. And so what he decided to do is he began his research on focusing on clients and focusing on their strengths, focusing on what makes them happy, and looking how individuals and communities can thrive when you're focusing on things of that nature. So through that, and 20 years later, the research is out there. Many different researchers have also participated. And one thing that has been a part of this is positive psychology interventions. And basically what they are simple, intentional, regular practices to mimic happiness, thoughts and behaviors that are associated with naturally happy people. Some examples of positive psychology interventions would be a random act of kindness, keeping a gratitude journal, thanking a person, spending time with family and friends. So I just wanted to kind of give you a couple, and each one of these and many more are all supported in the research that goes back to how implementing positive psychology interventions has diminished stress and burnout and also depressive symptoms. One thing I would like to talk about that I think is very important is consent, confidentiality, and anonymity. At any time during my research study, an educator can opt out. There's no penalty, there's no nothing. They just have to say, Chris, I'm done. And I say, great, no problem, thanks. All consents and surveys will be conducted online and will be untraceable back to the participants. Because it is an experimental study design and they are going to be part of a group, I will have their email to be able to send them, activities. But the online surveys are anonymous and there's no way that I can trace them back to their email. Like there's no connection there. So again, the only identifying information would be the daily emails that I send out that will remain confidential. So no one will know who else is involved in the study. The purpose of this study is for this to fit into teachers' duties and professional responsibilities today. These positive psychology interventions or the activities that I'll be doing with the control group literally will take between 1 and 5 minutes. So the intention is not to have any of their instructional time affected. And one thing I do want to point out to the board that at no point in any point of my study will students be participating. There will be no student identity, information, or participation. So students are completely exempt from any part of my research study. The Internal Review Board, better known to us at Riviere as the IRB, is the board that every research project that goes through Riviere University has to go through. I did submit to the board a copy of the application. I just wanted to give you an idea of the rigorous review of my study that will happen. And though I am seeking preliminary consent from the Merrimack School Board, my study will also be in a very, very big review with Riviere. After the IRB at Riviere, I would be more than happy to come back and tell you if there were any changes. But the IRB at Riviere has the final say on anything that I do. So if there's any changes or anything, I'd be happy to come back and let you know what they are. I have met with my committee, of course, quite a bit, and we are not foreseeing any issues with my study with the IRB, but, we'll find out when you go through the process. So my dissertation committee is 3 of my professors from Riviere, Dr. John Gleason, who's the dean of our education department, as well as the director of my EDD program, Dr. Robert Waldrath, who is actually the director of the PsyD program at Riviere and also a school psychologist here in Merrimack, and Dr. Angela Mousseau, who's also one of my professors at Riviere. So within the board packet that I did submit to you, I did submit a model consent form, the demographic questionnaire, and they are subject to the IRB. So the IRB doesn't just look over my study, but the IRB will go through every single document of my research. So my consent forms, I have to provide them with every single email I send. So it's a very rigorous process. I gave you a copy of both the scales, the application, and I also had to take a class to get certified of protecting human research participants. So I had to learn about ethics in conducting research and everything that goes along with that. So that I also submitted to you. So again, I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to present. And I'd like to turn it over now to the board and answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Chris. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I will take the one question I have, and that is, what timeline were you looking for to get an answer from us? We normally do take a 2-week rule, if that is
That's
not
completely fine with me.
okay, because I know that they're going to be going on holiday break soon, if that's going to create a challenge.
I
for you.
appreciate that, but no, I'm perfectly fine with you taking your time.
Excellent. Naomi.
A quick little step in for it. First, as was mentioned earlier, I've had a chance to talk with Christine about this a few times, and she's been in one of my classes at Riv as well, and so that's worth putting out there. But I also wanted to say, as far as the IRB, thank you for the thoroughness of that. One thing that people will want to be aware of is IRB approval can't be given until a site has been found, and so this request has to come before the IRB. What we can do, and part of what we talked about, is approve it pending the IRB in some way, shape, or form. But it can't go through IRB until we have some kind of commitment, or you have a commitment somewhere. Does that sound right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so if there are no questions or concerns, what we can do is put this on consent for our next meeting, which is January 7th, which is next year. So it sounds like forever, but it's not that long. And what we'll do is from there, we will let Naomi make the motion because she always seemed to figure it out. And we will go from there. So I think we're going to be good to go.
Okay, thank you so much.
Good luck on your research and good luck on your doctorate.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks. Thinking out loud. Okay. Sort of. Okay. Excellent. So we are on to the next item on our agenda, which is the formal hearing on the food service budget for 2019-2020. And I invite to the table Director of Food Service, Dave Zeke. So, welcome, Dave. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. One of the major requests is purchase of replacement equipment for point-of-sale terminals in our 6 schools. And that would include the terminals that we use for the sale of the student meals, including barcode scanners, battery backups, and the cash drawers that we use. The Merrimack School District is a member of the New Hampshire Buying Group. At this time, there's 58 schools within the state that are included in the buying group. And we work together to get better bid pricing throughout the school year on grocery and frozen food items. And it's with that group that there's considerable savings involved. A couple items that we do not include would be bid out separately, which would be bread and milk, and some produce items. So I did receive some questions from the board, and I would like to go through those if that would be okay.
That sounds great.
First from Shannon. There's a question. It says, with the lessening of regulations on quality foods required in school lunches, what will the availability of foods we've been purchasing through the co-op, and will we be taking lesser quality routes that are now being allowed? So, excuse me. First, I'd like to say that the regulation changes are something that it's not lessening of regulations, but it's giving more flexibility to what we now provide to the students. Some of the things that were changed in those regulations were the amount of the whole grains that we are offering. And initially, when they did some of the changes to the lunch program, there was a section where we went to 50% whole grains, up to 50% whole grains, and then they went to 100% of the grains that we use had to be whole grain rich. So it's just bringing it back to the 50% mark, which is giving us more flexibility on some products that may not be as suitable to some students as and faculty and like, such as whole grain pastas or whole grain tortilla shells and stuff like that. So it does give us more flexibility. It's not going to lessen the quality of the foods that we do purchase. And the buying group has already sent out a survey to all its members saying that we're going to be looking at some of the products. We have a meeting coming up in March that we'll have a food show with different products that are available, and we won't make any decisions until our bid for next year as far as making changes to those products. And again, the products will be of good quality. It's not going to be anything that's going to be lesser quality for the students. So appreciate that question, though. And then the second question that you had basically was not associated with a line item, but it was something to do with the maintenance life on some of our coolers in the district. So my answer is, with regard to the coolers that we have, they're maintained on a regular basis. A lot of the problems that we might have may be mechanical with compressors and such, not so much with replacement of the physical boxes that we do use. So anything that we did, any cost would be reflected within maintenance and not necessarily replacement of the coolers. So I don't anticipate anything long run as far as replacement of any of the coolers that we have.
Thank you.
From Andy Schneider, Andy said, if the new point of sale systems are brought in for $30,000 and we have a 5-year extended warranty with them, does that remove all of the ongoing future service contract budgeted items subsequent to budget years? It shows a drop from $12,500 to $8,000 in 2019-20. And does it continue at a lower rate in the future? So with the purchase of the terminals, it would give us a 5-year extended warranty for those the hardware for those terminals. We would still have to maintain coverage with Heartland to cover our existing servers that we have in the 3 kitchens. And also, we also have a service contract with Heartland for the software and anything that's upgraded in the software each year. So our software coverage is about $6,000 a year, and the servers that we have in the kitchens in each office, we have 3 in each, and one in each main office. That would be the only thing that would be ongoing for the next year.
So just to be clear, so when it dropped to 8,000, is that what you think the run rate will be into the future, or?
The run rate in the future,
or at least the next 5 years.
It would be at least 6,000. We do have end of year coverage, which is generally $400 to $800 for the service to help close out the end of the year. And if we did purchase the hardware in the point of sale hardware for these schools, they said that the need for the servers in those kitchens would be eliminated because if I did do an upgrade to my software, we could use, it would go to the cloud, so there wouldn't be the necessity to go to those servers and run the terminals on the servers. They would go directly to Heartland. So I would say if we did the upgrade to software, we could eliminate the 3 hardware server contracts.
So the bottom line is it would be just the $6,000 a year for the maintenance of the software. And you wouldn't have the ongoing support or need for the servers at all.
Correct.
So could you, one side note, could you function if the internet was down? I mean,
yes,
you could function, and if the servers went away, you could still function?
At that point, yes. I think there's it would go directly to the Heartland main office. So.
Right, but I'm asking because we know that the internet is not always there.
True.
Right, and if you have no local backups of the servers in each facility,
right,
can the point of sales terminal be able to function during a day and then do a load later on? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
And Naomi had a few questions. First one, I know we touched on this last year, but can we revisit the reason for the increase in repairs budgeted to the 2019-20 and 2018-19 budgets? We did have an increase in repair budgeted for this year, and we level funded it to continue to next year, only because, God bless you, the amount expended in 2016-17 was $15,000. So it doesn't show up on the budget pages actually for 2016-17, but when we get to that point of 15,000, we budgeted for that amount. We didn't realize it last year, which is good, but we just kept it there as a level funded item. And then as opposed, the item for the maintenance of the vehicle, this item has roughly doubled, and about how much lower amount in the last expenditure report. Is this based on more recent numbers or some other estimate? So, as far as the van repair budget goes, for the last couple of years, we've had it relatively low because we had the new van in place. And the budgeted amount was basically for inspections and general oil changes and such as that. The only reason we went up a little bit because we're anticipating we might need tires or brakes or something in the future. So that was the difference. And then what is the difference between oil changes for the satellite schools and that item as opposed to oil or gasoline and oil for the van? Basically, the gas oil, if we had to add oil while we were doing a fuel up, it would go under the gas and oil. And the other one would be if we had, regular service to do an oil change and stuff that we budgeted in separate. Okay. And then back to the hardware. Does this number decrease from last year already reflect the cost of savings on the purchase of the new hardware mentioned in the text? Proposed budget for the contract expense would reflect the related purchase of new hardware. If the hardware wasn't approved, then we would have to increase my budget again for the service. And please share some of the information regarding the deficiencies of the current equipment that necessitates the upgrade and related cost savings over time. So the equipment that we have in place, the hardware that we have in place, they're basically terminals for each serving line that we have in the schools. Some of them have been there since we brought this system in. So you can picture the hardware been beat up a little bit after 15 to 20 years, but the major deficiency is that the operating system is not compatible with any future upgrades that I might have to our a Mosaic software. That may be something that we look at. So it's necessary to change some of these hardware pieces out so that we can move forward next budget season, looking at a software upgrade. So, and I think that's it on the questions. So I'm open to other questions at this time.
Based on the presentations, does anything else come up for Dave while we have him? Seeing none, you might be off the hook, but we're always willing
You
to
got my number.
recall you if we need you. Absolutely. Thank you very much for the thorough answers, and we look forward to the rest of a good school year.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
And our next agenda item is on maintenance. So I bring to the table Director Tom Tussaud. I'm sorry. Oops, Tom, you're coming anyway. But stay here. Sorry, but between the two, we did have the withdrawal from Emergency Repair Capital Reserve Fund. So I will turn that over to actually Matt and I. So.
You want me to start
I'm just gonna let you cue it up. How's that for an answer?
Why don't I cue up, seeing that you first saw this like a little while ago at the first part of the meeting.
Yeah, like
so it's
when we first sat down.
late
Yep.
breaking news on the switchgear. As you recall, we have a switchgear in the high school. It's original equipment to the building. It's 4,000 amps. It's made by Federal Pacific. Cannot get any parts for that anymore. We did have some issues with it tripping. And the last time when it tripped, it didn't reset. We couldn't get it to reset, no matter how hard we pulled and pushed and tugged and whatnot on the big handle. So we called in Custom Electric. They did something to it, and they got it to reset for us. However, it is at end of life. If it fails, it would mean that the majority of the high school would be out without power for an extended period of time. I think the lead time on these devices is somewhere of 12 weeks easily. And then, there's a lot to it. It basically takes the main power from the building and brings from outside the building from the transformer where it's located. And we requested $110,000 to replace this. But we had Custom Electric, who's our contractor on the job, and submit the plans. And when the plans were submitted, we didn't meet current building codes because the fire department is viewing this as a new installation instead of a replacement. So when looking at it as a new installation, one has to meet the current building codes, which means around the switchgear, we need 42 inches of clearance, both front and back. And when you look at the drawing of the room that the switchgear is in, even in the front we have 38 inches, in the back we have 43 3/4, and even if we move that thing back a smidge, we're still not getting 42 and 42. So for the time being, the fire department wrote this letter to Sean Waterman at the Custom Electric, stating that the plan is not approved as proposed. However, Rick Jones, he's the building official who wrote the letter to him and CC'd us. He said, please be advised the New Hampshire State Fire Marshal may need to pre-approve this work in a public education building. So Tom, who was supposed to be on vacation this Wednesday, is kind enough to give up half of his day for me to escort me to the fire department to meet with the fire department to talk about this Thursday morning at 10:30. I would expect, having been in this position before, that the state fire marshal will be there, and we will have a discussion about how we can work around this and how to potentially get a waiver of the 42-inch requirement, seeing that we are seemingly so close. So we'd like you to delay your decision until we're done with that meeting and then bring it back around and either saying we're successful or we weren't. If we're not successful in getting the waiver, the back wall of that room would have to be demolished. It is the back wall of the storage closet to the gym. Is that correct, Tom? We would have to hire a structural engineer. We would have to look at a steel beam to carry the load. It would, I don't know what it would do, but it's something hopefully that we're looking to avoid, and we can come to a consensus, because it is in the best interest of the district to replace this archaic piece of machinery, and hopefully, things will go our way and we'll get it done. But right now, we just want to let you know that we'd like to just back away from this, have our meeting on Thursday, and then potentially give you some better news as we enter the new year. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Are there any questions? Linda?
I mean, I would say just a clarification. So if I hear you correctly, it sounds like we're looking for this waiver or this reprieve to be able to go forward. Does that mean that we wouldn't need to supplement it with extra money from our reserve?
Well, for one, I don't think you have enough extra money in your reserve to do the demolition of the back wall.
Okay.
To make it compatible. So that's kind of your answer right there. We'd have to look at in the operating budget where we could pare back if we needed to do so.
So do we have money in our current budget for part of the switch, or are we still going to have to take what we have?
We could possibly locate some savings from personnel, which we have customarily, and utilize that for any additional work we would have to do. But we're not even sure of the scope. We have to get Miller Engineering or somebody in there from Manchester to go and take a look at it to see if it's load bearing. See, it probably is. To engineer a beam, to do something.
So right now it's really a heads up that
Yes.
depending on what happens.
Thursday is the key.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. And when it comes to the savings in personnel, just to clarify, we would know what that savings would even be until after contracts were delivered for next year and
Yeah.
staff for next year
That's what I'm
certified.
hoping
So
for.
it's really, we have no assurances that that would
No.
even come to light.
We
So
don't.
So that is a challenge. The one thing I would say is I think that when it comes to the $110,000, if the waiver is granted by the fire marshal, I'm in favor of that. So with that, I would actually, if it behooves to say pending, in the event the fire marshal grants waiver, we approve the $110,000. And then if not, come back to us with a new agenda item.
That would
be
allow
fine
us
too.
to go forward
and
instantaneously
get some design done.
save
That's
some time.
that's the only thing I'm thinking might help, just because I know timelines are the only thing I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
So I don't like the fact that we're on shaky ground as far as a piece of equipment that operates a whole school, and that if we do get the waiver, then that we would hold you up for 3 weeks.
Okay.
So that's my personal opinion. I don't know.
I like
Okay.
that.
Andy,
I'm going to make a motion, and I'm going to use a word in it.
use a word.
Well, it's a phrase.
Okay.
I would like to move that we authorize the Assistant Superintendent of Business to withdraw up to $110,000 to address from the Emergency Capital Reserve Fund to address the replacement of the switchgear at MHS. And the reason I'm saying up to is that if the switchgear were to cost less, then the reconstruction would be more. We don't want to hold them up. I doubt it will, but if you do it that way, it sort of just covers it.
Okay. So is there a second to that? Seconded by Cinda. So essentially what we'll do is we'll authorize you for up to $110,000 with this motion. And in the event you need to come back to us because the fire marshal's not going to grant you the waiver, then just come back to us and come up with a new motion. But you have this flexibility to get the work done now if things work out. I think that's exactly what we want to happen. So with that, we'll put the motion to a vote unless there's any comments or questions on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, none. The motion carries 5-0-0. So we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you
We're
very
hoping for a
much.
positive outcome, and give the fire marshal our very, very best.
I will bring coffee to the meeting. Yes.
Under a certain dollar amount value of coffee, please. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And now we are here for the formal hearing on maintenance for 2019-2020 with Tom Tuso.
Thank you.
So, thanks, Tom.
Thank you. I'd like to start with the maintenance budget for 2019-2020. There's 4 major items that I'd like to bring to your attention in this budget. First one would be the transformer at the high school. The second one would be Mastacola Upper Elementary Schools and Mastacola Elementary Schools roof project. Also at Mastacola Elementary, there are a boiler project of replacement of 2 boilers. And for the last item that I'd like to bring to your attention would be the switchgear replacement at Mastacola Upper Elementary School in this year's budget.
Thank you.
And I'd like to move towards, at this point, questions that was given to me, if that's
That'd be great.
okay.
Thank you.
First question would be from Shannon Barnes. In the spirit of avoiding a spike in the tax rate from unprojected maintenance items such as boilers and switchgears, what is the risk of moving the Mastacola Upper Elementary School, Mastacola Elementary School roof project out 1 year? When I look at that, I look at where do we sit right here today? We have no roofs in this district that I feel are in a failed position. So everything at this point is fine. What we do have to look, though, is a little bit further, and I think we can get by with taking that 1 year off, but that would mean us doubling up. Or would the question lead us to saying everything would ripple back? And I looked at that in one way. The Mastacola Upper Elementary School roof is actually this year, or this coming year, it's going to be 12 years out of warranty. That's a long time. Normally, I'm looking for a school roof to be 5 years out of warranty. Certainly can change because now we're going with longer warranty. But we're 12 years out or over at a roof that started off with a 10-year warranty. So we've doubled its lifespan. Then we look a little further down the road and we look into the following year. It would be the Thornton's Ferry one. Thornton's Ferry is on the slate now. When it's going to be replaced, it's going to be 11 years old. That's the 1.195. That's a lot of money. I would think, in thinking that it could possibly work, that we could just ripple things, but I would not be surprised if all of a sudden all the 2 roofs could come together. And that would be a real spike, meaning that next year, if I'm sitting at the table, which I don't think would happen, I could technically come back and ask you for $1,850,000.
And Tom, just in the spirit of transparency, you were actually reading my mind about next year. Really, the goal is, and we look at the capital projects and the bonded debt, and the bonded debt's going to go down. And that's really where we, again, the number's going to go down in year 3 in our combined number. So that's what I'm saying. I don't want to spike a dip, a spike, a dip. I want as close to a level line as I can get, even if it slopes upward a little bit because of cost of living and cost of materials. Spikes and dips are wildly disruptive to the tax bill. And whatever we can do to levelize that and still maintain our responsibility to keeping the facilities, peak operational, that's absolutely what our budget message was. But our budget message didn't have in its sights the boilers, the switch gears, and honestly, it's not the roof that's causing the spike. It's the things that weren't even on our radar when we were putting together our budget message that are. So that's really what the motivation is for this, and that's really where I'm just, again, for the sake of transparency, where I'm leaning with us. Don't be surprised if you see a motion from me if it doesn't come from someone else. If you feel it's not going to fail. But the goal is, to me, to move this out 1 and move the next one out 1, to basically keep it as stable as possible, because spikes are definitely something that hurt families out, especially when they don't have even an escrow account that helps to, again, levelize it, where they're paying their taxes straight out of their checking account. That could be a great hardship. So that was my thought when I wrote that question. You can ask a related question.
So related to this, so I understand what Shannon's doing. I want to understand how real the switchgear cost really is. Hearing what I'm hearing from that, if we've got multiple switchgears that we're replacing over years, is that amount accurate, or are we looking at construction things? So it's hard. It's a little bit of a wild card here. I mean, roofs you've got down. You can tell us how many nickels it'll cost to do a roof for thousands of dollars. But switchgears, now we're looking at new fire codes to be able to replace it. Who knows? Maybe there's a boiler. I mean, we're hearing things around codes changing when we replace things that we thought would just do that. So I guess I'm even more tempted to hear Shannon's motion simply because of some of the unknowns of the things we're replacing that are new to this year that we didn't expect. But also now we're hearing that there could be more hidden cost to it. So it's just a comment.
Cinda?
So I know that we're going to be essentially debt-free from our bonded debt in the next several years. Yeah, just a few years out, which
24,
isn't very
25.
long, which is, I think, is a great accomplishment for this district in the community. Are there options that we would have for some of these maintenance items? I mean, we have old buildings, they're 50 years old. Sounds like there were a number of roofs that were put on with, I would say, maybe not as high a quality as you could get to
Shorter
be
lifespans.
right. I mean, when you're talking 10, 12-year warranties,
10,
you're not
15.
talking
Mm.
the most, the best quality that's out there and available. So are there options that we would have with bonded debt, let's say, to help levelize the tax rate for some of these boilers, for some of the overall maintenance? Could we combine it in a way that it would distribute itself more evenly for the taxpayer? That if we were to kind of put that out there to the taxpayers, I just throw that out there as a thought.
I see your finger on the button. Are you trying to?
Well, yeah, it was
Go ahead.
kind of there, but it wasn't.
Okay. Well, if you
totally
want it,
there.
it's yours.
Okay.
I'm giving you.
The way one could do that is to look at a list of projects and do much in the same way that we've done in the past and do a lease purchase with a non-appropriation clause, put it as a warrant article, and then it could pass by a simple majority, which would be easier than doing a bond issue. So you can go one of two ways. If you want to do the 60% supermajority, you could do a bond issue. You can definitely wrap that up as educational infrastructure improvements to include X, Y, and Z. We could list them all and spread it over 20 years if you wanted to, once that other bonded debt dropped off. Or you could do a lease purchase and do the same thing.
I mean, and maybe that's an answer to be considered.
That's what we've been doing with the technology and the computers. We've been doing leasing because for years we built the network 15 years ago. Because when I came here, there were 56 K lines coming into each school. And I went, is that really what your network is? And yes, it was. So we had a warrant article for $472,000. Marge was behind the efforts of that warrant article when we first started working together years ago, and we built the network. And then everybody thought, okay, you're finished. All the computers are bought. Phew, that was great. But 5 years down the road, it's all old gear now. And the software was driving the hardware, and then you have to get into a replacement cycle. So for a while, we got behind the 8 ball until we put it on the CIP. Nancy Rose looked at leasing equipment to get us to a spot where we actually could replace a lot of these machines. And so that's how we kind of turned that around, and you didn't see a giant spike that way. I'm one that doesn't like to borrow if you don't have to borrow,
Yeah, no,
but sometimes it makes sense, especially when you got cheap money like today.
Well, and I think when we look at wanting to keep the tax rate stable, I
Yeah.
think we have to look at all options
Right.
and what is the best for the community.
Naomi?
I like the complexity and the range of options being discussed. I would probably want to put a voice in against deferred maintenance unless one has to. It has a way of coming back to bite one with increased costs when something fails that you had your fingers crossed wouldn't fail. I'd be sorry to see that happen with the roofs when we're in such good shape with it.
Okay, Andy.
So just so people understand, and I'm going from memory on this, so Matt, try to keep me honest. To give you an idea, the budget season we're in right now, we're talking about 2019 and 2020. That year is the last year of the bonded debt for the current Honeywell project that we did 15 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Which is what, $480,000?
Yeah.
Right. So so we pay that one more time and then that's gone. Then after that, there are 2 more additional years where we pay the bond on the high school editions,
Yeah.
which is like 330
300-something thousand.
300-something thousand a
Then
year.
you drop
so,
the middle school.
So we lose 480,000 after next year.
Yeah.
2 years after that, we lose 330,000, and then 3 years after that,
700 and
we
something.
lose.
That's the big one.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
there,
then-
there it is. Yeah.
Right, right.
Then
So
the middle
you-
school. Yeah.
And then the middle.
24,
So
25.
actually, I take that back. It's even better than I thought. Right. So the
23,
first year,
24.
we lose Honeywell's retrofit after next budget year. We lose the MHS additions after that next budget year. So there's only 2 more left. And then there are 3 more additional years of the middle school addition. So by the time we start talking about budgeting for 24, 25, there is no bonded debt based on our current structure.
Correct.
We, if we add anything in, it goes there. But, essentially, we lose 467,000. Then the year after that, we lose an additional 303,000. And then at the end of that, it's about 800,000. So
Right.
the bonded debt goes away over time. Unfortunately, the question is, in terms of things like roofing and stuff, if we were to delay it by a year, we can start to see savings on some of that roofing just based off the loss. It won't be as much of a spike. So I guess the question is if all the roofing projects were to move 1 year out, we would start to be in a better place because you don't have that bonded debt that's there. It's just a
Right, and that's actually the point of my question, because in 2019, 2020, with the CIP and the bonded debt, that's a spike rate now at 4.378, almost $4.379 million. Next year, bonded debt and capital improvements drops to 2.903, or 904 basically, and then the year after it's 2.633. So I'd be moving each one down 1. So, and that was the basically the spirit of the intent of the question. Cinda?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think what he was saying is, okay, let's say we do that, but then
Mhm.
there's a fail where
Oh, if
we
there's
have
a
to
fail,
double
we're
up.
definitely
Then we
yeah.
have to double up. So how would, let's say the worst, that would be a potential worst case scenario or one of the worst
Right.
case scenarios. How would we handle that then if all of a sudden we had a double whammy?
Right. Well, 4.378 would go down to 3.6, like 3.65, and then if you added the kept next year's there plus added the 665, that would bring you to 3.6. So it actually is equal.
Okay.
So that's the point. So if anything, what we're doing is we're trying to, again, levelize it. So it would only levelize the 2 years at that point. But it wouldn't, longer term, we'd actually start to get drop-offs because of, again, the bonded debt going away. But there's other roofing projects because 21, 22 has a $1.039 million assignment to it. So we're in roofing until 24, 25, which is the same time we get rid of our debt and everything, honestly, plummets as far as CIP and infrastructure. So that's what I'm saying. If we wiggle it down, you're going to end up having it just trickle down 1 more year, which is the intent of my question. So not ideal, not what we want, but based on what we have for a CIP right now and what we have coming up, I think that might be, as far as I'm concerned, a calculated risk we might be wanting to consider. That's my 2 on that. But yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like I'm disagreeing because I'm actually not, but I'd be wanting to know one more piece in there that we haven't talked about, and that is what is the additional possible expense of having leaks of a roof that fails?
I understand. So what are the possible expenses for a leak of a roof that failed?
I'm sorry?
What would be basically if there's a leak in a roof, I'm not saying a complete failure of a roof, but having to do a temporary repair of a roof.
We've done stuff in the past, like Mastercola Elementary School. We've had the bucket brigade before. You kind of call them, where you have 9 or 10 trash buckets in separate rooms, and we wait from, in the middle of winter, you really can't do it, so we wait until the summer. Then you really can't have kids in that section of the building where you're doing a roof repair, so all those kids are displaced. So unless it's a simple repair, but if it's a big repair and we have to start ripping the roof off and doing it right then, that's going to be a huge issue.
Marge?
And you're going to see the map of the roofing when Matt does his piece later on. But I believe the piece for Mastercola Elementary School is the gymnasium. And so, is that not where
It
the
is
roof
the gym.
is? So, if we have leaking in the gymnasium, now we're talking about a special floor. And so, that is a real displacement. So, yeah, I think we just need to consider exactly what is the roof and where is it? What's it over?
Okay. I think Cinda and then Brandy.
So are there signs that the roof will give you, like as it's about to?
Sometimes there are, definitely sometimes. I don't see any signs that says we're imminent danger at this point.
What
But
would you see if we were in danger? What are the kinds of
bubbling, some of the edge seams pulling away, seams himself expanding. We could see, as you would say, as I said, bubbling, big bubbles in the interior. When you step on it, air gets out, water can get in. You can have water in a roof for quite a while, and that presents a different problem about the environmental standards inside a building. So we kind of want to dodge that issue of not letting water get into the infrastructure of the school and sitting there. It could be a great big issue for us. So as I can tell you right now, I don't see anything. I really don't think anything's going to happen, but I would really feel that it's my duty to inform you we could be looking at 2 roofs next year, worst case scenario.
So is this roof kind of like that tarpy kind of roof like the middle school had, or no?
The roof at the Mastercola Elementary School is a membrane roof. It's not a built-up roof, which we do now. The 2 sections at Mastercola Upper Elementary School are, both of those can be repaired. It's actually a little bit easier in some ways to repair a membrane roof, but on the other hand, a membrane roof can have a complete failure quicker than a built-up roof.
Is the membrane roof what was on the middle school?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was part of the issue where, you're looking for it to split, and the logical place is for it to split in the seams. And Tom brought me up on the roof, and we were looking, and it wasn't where the seams were. It was splitting. It was between the seams.
Mid-sheet.
And that was triggered by the hurricane remnants. Is that correct?
I don't believe so. I
No?
think that was just the roof that was
heavy
there.
snow.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
I think Brandy and then Andy.
I agree. It's not I disagree, but I think I've said before, I'm not a fan of kicking the can as much as I would like to not kick the can. I understand there are times where we kind of need to. I don't feel that we have enough concrete. For me personally, I would like to see exactly what it would cost to have somebody go in and take a look at the like a roof expert to say, here's you are.
Well, what we do is we do work with outside vendor and we inspect our roofs, and evaluation process is very important for us. Once or twice a year, we walk all the roofs. You'll find out at some point the roof order might change, because when you're looking at a roof out 7 or 8 years, all of a sudden that roof starts to look better, and the roof that could be further out could start looking worse, because we're not ending our roofs on the warranty date. We're not even ending them on 5 years. At some cases that we're looking at roofs twice their warranty. So it's less apt to see a roof falling apart, while after some winters, like what happened at the middle school, there was no doubt when we went into that fall, the roof looked good. When we looked in the spring, up there, the snow's off, and all of a sudden, for the first time, it's evidence the sheets are splitting.
And the middle school jumped the line.
Yes, it did.
So that would be my concern, is that if we kick the can farther and then we wind up sort of regretting that decision because now we've got a bigger challenge on our hands than if we had just been proactive. That's my biggest concern with it. But I think we all would need to really depend on your expert opinion on that one.
I think my honest answer is that I believe that we don't have a roof failure right now.
Okay.
I believe we can carry through. Although with that, I always bring up the point where you're looking at a roof that had a 10-year warranty is going to be 12 years over, longer than it really should be. And we've got good value out of that roof. I could be sitting here with a big problem next year, or we could be sitting here saying, thank God we, moved it out a year. Don't know the answer.
Okay. And Andy and then Cinda?
So I'd like to make a request that in looking at the maps of the roof, so there's three major sections, if you will, on the Massacola complex. There's the gym on Massacola up elementary, and then there's two sections on upper elementary, both on either side. And you told me that, and you said earlier that the gym has a more of the membrane roof versus the layered roof. And I think we all still have the scars of the membrane roof, the middle school. So what I'd like is, if it's possible for you to split the elementary school gym roof and the two associated next to it separately in terms of cost from the other two roof sections, just so we have that data in front of us.
Okay.
And Cinda?
Well, is that a possibility to do some of it without doing all of it? As far as
Well, my comment is that usually if you're doing a roof, you want to do the entire area that you're doing, right? But if you look at the map, it's like you look at the complex, it goes all the way from the elementary school gym to the upper. You've got gym at one complete in, and then the upper elementary that's like completely different. So it's not as though they're in the same place on the roof.
I'm going to have to go back a little bit. One of the sections at Massacola Up Elementary School, after taking a closer look here, where we had issues a couple of years ago, that one section is also a membrane roof.
Okay, well.
I'm sorry.
Break it apart and say whether it's membrane or built, just so we have
Will
the
do.
data so we can look at it. Because if we're going to start to if we're going to try to use a little bit more of a scalpel than what we've used so far, at least we have the data.
Okay.
And then,
I'm sorry.
I would say one thing, though, that I think is really important, that we do put quality materials like we are looking at doing. The membrane roofs, I mean, it just passes the problem on short term down the road to the taxpayers again. And I'd rather put something quality that's going to last a long time, and that it may be a little more expensive at the time or a little more palatable, but it's something that can last 30 years, not 10. So I definitely support our efforts to continue doing that.
so isn't everything you're proposing built roof?
It is built up roof, and actually it's kind of how the industry has developed. We used to start, and we got these built up roofs. When we first started putting them on, they had a 25-year warranty. Then they went to 30, 35. Now the roofs that we're proposing are for 40-year warranty. Just because of the technology, and technology has got better.
No more membrane roofs.
No, thank you.
No more tarps.
Are there any other questions on the first question for Tom? Are you having fun yet?
Absolutely.
There you go. Thank you. Thanks for bearing with us. So I think you had some from others. So
Okay, the next question was from Mr. Snyder. Specifically, the additional cameras. Are there any grants, state funding sources to offset the cost of new cameras being proposed, like happened to us last year with the State Security Infrastructure Grant? And I'm going to turn that to Matt.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. Yes, yes and no. There was a public infrastructure fund grant process available. That's where we got the money for the bats. We also received around $38,000 for the $50,000 worth of cameras we had in this year's budget, so that'll be forthcoming. But I do have a request in right now for a certain dollar amount of security cameras, but the whole state right now is on hold. So there's really nothing right now available as far as monies from the state for safety, security, bulletproof glass, anything like that, like there was. Everything is in a fixed, frozen state right now.
But is it fair to say that if this did stay in the budget, that it would, and a similar program were to be instituted for the next year, we could take advantage like we did
Yes.
this year?
Yeah.
Okay, and to that end, are there federal grants? And do we not? No, not at
No.
all. Okay.
Next
Alright.
question. For the natural gas for Merrimack Middle School, the budget amount for the current year is lower than the 2017-2018, and the proposed amount for the 2019-2020 is the same as the previous year of $54,512. Why was the current year's budget so much less, approximately $9,000? The answer to that is the way we prepare the budget is what we do is we take givens. What happened in that last year's budget, the given we knew was 2015 and 16, and that was at $45,000 some odd dollars. And 2016, 2017, that was at $43,542. So we took the highest of those 2 years, and that's why that we're sitting with the budget amount that we proposed this year. Given this current year, we looked at the last 2 years, and in the last 2 years, 2016, 2017 was $43,543, and 2017 and 2018 was $54,512. So the answer is within the years that we took it, took the 2 years that we took the highest amount. And obviously 2017, 2018 didn't show up the first time when we were preparing last year's budget. It showed up this time. That's why we had made the jump.
So this has to do with the old 3-year average.
2-year average on this.
2 years for this, right? So I understand this from a budget, and if you spend less, it'll be refunded and things. But just as a general question, are you seeing the run rates more aligned with the higher amount or the lower amount? I'm not holding you to this. I'm just curious.
Yeah, sometimes I don't have an answer for it. Sometimes it's basically what the temperature is out that year. Are we cooling more, or are we heating more? And it's as simple as that. How many times is the door open for this event and stuff like that? So there is a little. The only thing we can go on is things that we know. Actual amounts we do know, and that's why we base it on that.
Right. It's normal. I understand that normally,
Yeah.
but there was a pretty significant swing
Yeah.
in terms of the amount this time. I mean, it's almost 25%, just maybe 20 to 25% increase. So that's the only reason that I caught my eye, because it was pretty significant. So
I understand.
All set?
Moving to the next question.
Thank you.
The overall across all consumable budget items for Brentwood School building: gas, oil, electric, and water. Are there a budget number assumes use of building during the upcoming school year, keeping the heat and cooling temp at a comfortable temperature? If so, and if we decided just to shut the building based on the fire engineer's report, will these numbers go down? Those numbers were given to us by the people who own
the
Brentwood.
former owners of Brentwood gave us those budget figures.
We actually have no understanding what the budget numbers entailed. Was it when school was out? Was it when school's in? It seems like almost every day I go over and I find out a new a new item, a new nuance. When we're looking at this budget, I'm looking at it that I have roughly $23,000 in there for those items. I believe it could be closed for well under $10,000. If we open it up again, there'll be another charge to open it up again. So there is some savings. The new things that it just came to my attention is like we filled the natural gas tank.
Okay.
Excuse me, fill the propane tank. And filling it, we've allotted $8,500 for the year. When I filled it for the first time, we spent $9,000 to fill the tank once. Will that take us all year? Will it take us 2 years? Will it take us at a comfortable temperature? No idea. I also know now about that building, there's roughly 5 heating sources. 1 is oil and 4 is propane. All those furnaces or boilers need to be checked, making sure they're up and running. On the, as you would call it, the gymnasium in that school, they actually have the piping in the floor, so they have radiant heat. Did not know that. That obviously would have to be drained if we closed it, so that's why I'm not exactly sure how to give you a number, but yes, we would have some savings of this year's budget if we did.
So just a question to Matt. So one of the outstanding action items was to get a report from the state fire marshal about the panel that's in the building. Because our ability to utilize the building or not is sort of hinging on that response. And so as a board, we're sort of sitting here waiting.
Yeah, that will be coming January 7th. John Manueli from the fire department, the fire marshal, will come and help interpret the report. I received the report from SFC Engineering that states a lot of information, and John's going to help us decipher what all that means. So he's going to be here and give you the status of what it means. Then from that point, we can go on.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Next question is from Naomi. Please share more information regarding why the new vendor is more expensive than the previous one. What we do every year is we put it out for bid. The vendor that has bid on our school district for the last 8 years did not submit a bid. Surprising by all. We did have 3 bids, and we chose the least expensive out of them. And knowing that it's a potential that our other vendor might not bid again because we didn't know why they didn't, we could see that staying at this level, hopefully that the vendor that didn't bid will bid in the upcoming year, and we can go back down a little bit. That would be my thought. Okay. Okay. The next question from Naomi. Can you tell us more about the lease? Who is the lease from? Would be Eversource, and why? How is ownership of the property for our transformers in the school district? So as we start off, we get a whole nother subject about learning what we own and what we don't own. I spent some time with Eversource going out to all the sites. Just so everybody knows, right now we have a combination of transformers they own and some that we own. At at Merrimack Middle School, Thornton's Ferry, and Reed's Ferry, Eversource owns those transformers at those schools. At Merrimack High School and Merrimack at Mastacola Complex, one of each. So we'll start at the high school. The transformer outside where the dumpsters are is owned by the school district. The one out front by the student service office is owned by Eversource. At Mastacola Upper Elementary School, that one is owned by the school district. The one at Mastacola Elementary School is owned by Eversource. Unfortunately, I tried to look back and research. There's nothing in our log that I could say that we know that there's ownership one way or the other. This is me working with Eversource, them coming out to the site, identifying what they own and what they don't own. So that's how it kind of works as far as which ones we own and which ones they own. The $75,000 that we put in to replace the transformer at the dumpster end of the school at the high school, or at B1 as we call it, we put in for $75,000. What that is that's a cost for a company to come in, take away our old transformer, and install a new transformer that we will lease from Eversource. Why we would do that? If not that, if we went out and bought a transformer, it would be an additional $200,000. Instead of buying it, we can lease it, which it comes just a little bit under $400 a month. So again, we're going to spread that cost out. So $400 a month we pay for lease of the transformer. What that means to us, though, if there's an issue with the transformer, Eversource comes and fixes it. If it blows up, they replace it. There's another issue, they take care of it. On what's happening now, if it blows up or it doesn't work anymore or it's in need of a replacement, it's our cost.
Naomi?
So take it down even more to an even more basic level if you can for a minute. So for example, I don't have a transformer that I own on my home.
Yeah.
And so in the sense of residential areas that we're most familiar with, that seems to be something that's wholly owned by the power company. So how does it end up that some of them are things that we're in the position to lease or buy or make those decisions at all in regard?
At a homeowner's level, yes, the Eversource or the power company definitely owns transformers, and it doesn't work any other way. In a school district or in a building, we have the option if we want to purchase the transformer and own it, or if we want to lease it. We do have a combination of, as you could tell across the district, some are owned, some aren't. I'm not sure if there's a wrong or right way. The way I was looking at it is I would rather spend $400 a month compared to the $200,000 upfront hit, and then be liable if all of a sudden in 10 years it fails. At this point, we say, Eversource, come in and fix your transformer, instead of coming back to the board and saying, we need another $200,000. So it's very different.
So as a point of clarity, then if we went forward with this, the one at MHS would no longer be owned to be leased, and we'd only own one at the Mastacola complex.
That's true.
And that might be something we want to talk about long term, maybe in the future budget.
Mm-hmm.
Because this does sound like we don't feel like being electricians for a living or utility transformer maintainers. So
Well, it's like other areas, copy machines.
Mhm.
We have a ton of copy machines in this district, very expensive copy machines, and they're all leased. Nancy Rose takes care of this, and they're all in the print management system, and teachers have to have codes to get in. So it's a leased item, but to buy those things and to own them, you never want to own a copy machine. It's just a big headache. It's kind of like the transformer.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I do have one other statement to make about transformers. We talked about the large ones going to schools. There's also some others that we're going through and to find out who actually owns them. It could be that Eversource put them up but we're not paying on them. So at this point, I'm okay without talking about it with them too much. And what we're looking at is transformers in telephone poles, which you would see in a residential area. Those are, in all these transformers are in the master polar complex past the primary metering, meaning that we pay a special rate because we're such a bulk customer. When you get past there, if you look up the telephone poles at around the superintendent's building in front of the high school, you're going to see clusters. Those are the other ones that are in the district.
Okay. Andy?
Just so you get a scope and scale, at $400 a month, 20 years you've paid in $96,000, which means 46 years would be the $200,000. So the question that you have to ask is, will a transformer that you buy last 46 years, or do you want to just, it's sort of like whether you buy your modem from Comcast or do you rent it? It's a little easier with that because it only takes like a year to pay off what the modem would be. But here it's a significant difference between it. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm done with the prepared questions. Any others?
Are there any? A lot came up as we went along. Were there any other questions for common maintenance, Andy?
It's not an actual question. I think that you should be prepared to visit us again probably more than once because obviously with the budget the way that it is and with a lot of things, there may be other questions that arise, especially like the roof, understanding the granularity of the cost. But I think as usual, we're caught with challenges that some of which we walked, like the middle school roof catching us off guard that one year. Here we've got things like switch gears and boiler and boiler replacements that caught us a bit off guard, which are causing us to sort of question this. So, it's not your lack of planning; it's the oh crap factor that we deal with. So, just roll with us as we go through. And
So, basically, I think what we want to do long term, I think we do a lot with Honeywell, but the boilers and again the electrical panels did not come up. So things that would not be necessarily overseen by a Honeywell audit, those kind of things. We want to probably get like a running tally at some point as we're going through these buildings and maintaining them on a regular basis, of the age and the life expectancy of it. Because this was definitely a year that we thought everything was fine and then everything's not fine, and as future boards prepare budgets, we want them to be set up for success as well. So for that reason, I think that we're probably gonna need you to come back for short-term stuff, but for long-term stuff, I think that a lot more has happened, and we things we can do just even circumstantial and not necessarily go through an expensive engineering study, but just maybe even just a tally list. Marge, is your hand up? Okay, never mind. So make sure, not leaving anyone hanging. But that's just my 2 cents. And I think Andy's right. We will be seeing you again this budget cycle. You've kept it very interesting this season. So, no fault of your own, but we do appreciate the research that you put into your presentations and the questions that you take from us. Even if you don't have the answer, you always get back to us with a very thorough response, and we appreciate that. So you're probably going to have the toughest run this year, and so good luck. So on that note, we will go on to item number 8, which is establish the school board budget hearing dates. And in your packets, we got through for the best, to the best of our ability, night number 1, which is food service and maintenance. But Monday, January 2nd is our next scheduled meeting. You'll see, did I say 7? Oh, 2nd? 7th. At 7th, that we are having our next scheduled meeting. But the town council also scheduled their budget hearings. They scheduled it for this night in this room because they get first dibs. So even though they asked us to be here, we're getting kicked out. So that was a little guilting I was doing. I hope you enjoyed it. But what's going to happen is we're going to meet at the high school cafeteria instead of here that night. Unfortunately, that comes with the consequence of it not being live. So this will be something that will need to be taped and rebroadcast at a later time. We don't have that capability. So the goal for that night would be going through JMU's Technology Library and Media and Student Services. With that, knowing how soon it is and knowing that there's a holiday between, we were hoping that you could get the questions over to the superintendent's office by maybe December 27th. And that way it gives time to compile and then disseminate the questions to the department heads and gives them a few days when they get back from the holiday to prepare their answers for us. And the next, if it works for everyone's schedule, will be Tuesday, January 8th. That'd be at the Town Hall Memorial Room. That's not this room. It's the room on the other side of the building where the town manager's office is and where you register your cars and dogs and pay any type of fees there. And so that would be Tuesday, January 8th at 7 o'clock. We would go over the 3 elementary schools, which are Mastrocola, Reed's Ferry, and Thornton's Ferry, the middle school, the high school, and the district-wide budget. Is that date workable for everyone? Excellent. We will also have a January snow date, which, we don't like to think about right now, but it's real. And so Monday, January 14th, again, that would have to be at the Town Hall Memorial Room. So any department that hasn't been presented to the board, and then also if we seem to be wrapped, maybe if there's any return presentations we have to make, we already kind of told Tom that's a good possibility. And then Tuesday, January 15th would also have to be the Merrimack High School cafeteria. And that'd be just any additional meetings with departments if necessary, and then the warrant article discussion. Andy?
So 2 questions. The first of which, for our meeting on January 8th at the Town Hall Memorial Room, when do you want the questions to the departments for that one? It's only one day later than the previous, so.
If you could have them the 27th, I think that would be ideal.
Okay, so essentially, the 27th, you want all our remaining questions on the budget?
Yep.
Okay. My second question is why do we have the snow date on Monday and then the meeting on Tuesday? Why don't we have the meeting on Monday to do the additional ones, and if we need the one on the Tuesday, we can have it? I'm just curious. We should do, if we did Monday, Tuesday, Monday, and just went through everything, including the warrant articles, and then kept the Tuesday one as the snow date. I'm just curious of the logic, that's all.
I just set it up that way. You can flip it if you wish.
I would suggest that there was a snow date on the last. Snow date.
Right.
Right, that's sort of what I was thinking.
Flip it, and I also like the idea of being in the memorial room as well, because they have the facilities built in versus having to truck them in.
Right.
So I agree with you. I think that we can do that. So again, if we can have all questions on the rest of the budget book done by the 27th or earlier, if you happen to have a free day and a cup of tea, that would be great. Yes?
So there's also a request. So because we said a lot of things, and we also moved the snow date, this will be posted on the district website so people can see it, correct?
Absolutely, but you're stealing the thunder of item number 9.
Oh, I'm
but
sorry.
okay.
Well, no. This would go up normally anyway, our meeting schedule. So.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Cinda?
Along the same vein, I was wondering if it might be possible to reach out to the chairman of the budget committee and combine, get one, because it's all supportive of the school district, and to combine the
I've
budget
tried
committee.
I have tried for years to combine the budget committee and the school board for economy of scale. If you can get the current chair to agree to that, I'll buy you dinner someplace.
I'm happy to take. I'm happy to run with that. I'm happy to reach out to him.
I'm sorry, Marge?
The budget committee chair has just sent out his list to us for budget hearings, and so this week on Wednesday, the leadership team is going to look at those and see how they sort themselves out. So he's planning on starting on the 23rd.
So you would have, in a couple of days, you would have the finalized meetings for the budget committee, right? Organized with
the
him.
meetings are finalized. He has established the meetings. What occurs on what night is what we have to figure out to make sure we don't have any conflicts. So that will happen on Wednesday.
Okay. So after that's done, I think it would be helpful for the public to get one document that has this, it basically follows the budget process. So through the school board, through the budget committee, the deliberative session date, and then any snow dates associated with that, as well as then on the election day. So it's really one document that has all the dates for the budget.
That would be ideal. Excellent. So I appreciate and applaud what you're looking to do. I thought was a good way to do it. Unfortunately, that's not the way the budget committee is choosing to do it, and they do have the the right to, if they would rather have independent hearings, that is their prerogative. So.
But those dates are all public, right? So
Right, oh,
it's
yeah,
not,
absolutely.
so we could compile them.
Mhm.
in
Oh,
one-
absolutely. But I'm just saying having them together the way we did in past years.
Oh, no, I understand that. I just want something that the taxpayer would
Okay.
have, because otherwise they go fish here, and then they go to the budget committee and go fish, and then they don't, maybe they see the deliberative session on the calendar, and they don't really know how it goes together and tracks the life of the budget.
Okay, so so you just want the documents together. You don't want the hearings together.
No, just the,
Okay.
just the
I think
informative.
that's where you were at. Okay.
Yeah, I thought, wow.
You had me directing.
Yeah. I saw I'm facing
No,
down
I'm-
on the table,
I'm just
so I want to
saying,
keep them going.
yeah, one place with all of the dates to avoid people having to go fish.
I think
That's
it's a fabulous idea. And yeah, and Andy can live with it, which is even better. So so we will go on to item number 9 in all its glory, which is the proposed communication material and distribution strategy to inform the public about the 2019-2020 school district budget. And I turn it over to Mark and Matt.
Okay, so Matt and I are going to tag team tonight, so I'll start. And what I'm passing out to the board is the communication plan, the distribution strategy that we've developed. And we've developed it in response to the board's direct request in their budget message that we develop a proactive strategy for communicating to the public the contents of the district budget. And so, just as a little bit of history, I just want to remind everyone listening that in addition to the board's budget message, we also have a district communications committee. And the communications committee has been working on just these kinds of issues, talking about ways that we could enhance our communication about all kinds of issues that relate to the operations of our school district. And so when we brought the board's message to the communications committee, we framed it in terms of branching out from our typical strategy of using our district website. And for the first time, it was the recommendation of the communications committee to officially adopt a Merrimack School District Facebook page. And that is different from what we have done in the past. We haven't had an official Facebook page. We're really grateful to Matt for creating one that he has used to convey all kinds of good information. But this is different in that we're officially tonight sort of announcing that we are going to have a Facebook presence for the first time. So the goal of this use of this tool is really to roll out in a series of steps over the next several months pieces of information related to cost items in the budget and also factors that the school district has to take into account that serve as the foundation for constructing a budget. For instance, it might not be commonly known to the public that we have minimum standards that relate to class size that we have to abide by. So we'll provide information about that. We have cost items related to safety and security, and we'll talk about that. And so our goal is to use that platform primarily. And in addition to that, the district website. So we are going to have a two-pronged approach where we will be proactive in the sharing of our budget items to the district. The way that we're going to announce this, one is tonight when we're talking to the school board and those who are listening. But we also know that not everybody pays attention to the school board meetings.
And so we are going to use School Messenger as a way to announce to people that the location for a lot of upcoming information that relates to the budget, but really beyond. We've talked a little bit about tonight some ways that we will use Facebook just to announce consolidated location for a meeting. But School Messenger will be that tool, but that tool really only reaches people who are part of the school district community, parents, and so on. So we know that a lot of people who are not members of the school district community, but are members of the Merrimack community, need to know how we are going to reach out to them as well. So we are working in collaboration with Merrimack TV, and Merrimack TV will run a scroll starting at the end of this week that will provide information about the designation of our Facebook page as a place for folks to go for sources of information. And it will also, at least with phase 1 of our communication plan, it will publish what Matt is going to do tonight with a narration by Matt. And the last thing I say before I talk to you about the specific plan as it's going to roll out is I want to be very clear that we are going to be very careful that the information that we provide is sourced. That's very important because at times there is lots of conjecture that's expressed by folks about how business is done. Some of it is accurate and some of it is inaccurate, using facts and figures that don't exist or realities that are not accurate. And so everything that we post on our district Facebook page can be traceable to a source that can be verified, so that people really understand that when we're sharing details about how the budget is constructed, it's based on facts, and it's very, very important because we're asking taxpayers to consider contemplating support of a budget, and they deserve facts that describe what actually goes into the development of a budget and what are the factors and sometimes the constraints that school districts have to operate within in order to generate that final bottom line. So I would just ask you to flip on your page, and I'll just, for the sake of the public, I'll just describe how this is going to go. So phase 1, which is week 1 tonight, Matt will provide information about significant budget drivers related to fixed costs and maintenance projects. And so Director Tuso talked a little bit about that. We're going to add a little a color to that, and that's tonight. We're going to take a little break off from Christmas, and then on the week of January 7th, we're going to post information related to food service and its relationship to the operating budget. Phase 3, the week of January 14th, we will drop information on how does the maintenance department prioritize projects and identify need. We talked some about that tonight, but I think it's fair to say that perhaps the average citizen doesn't really recognize the degree of work that goes into determining those things and to figuring out how, in fact, a priority has to change given conditions that no one can anticipate. Week 4, January 22nd, Technology, Libraries, and Media, Infrastructure for a Technology-Informed Classroom. The 5th week, January 28th, information about student services, its rules that it operates under, its regulations, and its commitment. This is an area that I think there is significant misunderstanding, particularly as relates to regulations that student services work within, and we'll attempt to use that social media platform to clarify and to explain. Week 6, February 4th, is, I think, a very important one, and it's going to be called, it is called Enrollment, Minimum Standards, and Staffing, Trends, Facts, and Budget Impacts. Week 7, February 11th, kind of playing around a little bit. I didn't know we had a furniture plan, did you? That is actually a cost item in the budget that has a budget impact, and it might be interesting for folks to know just how important that is and how is it that we come up with the amount of money that is included in the budget that we're asking people to support. Week 8, February 19th, transportation and a description of the variety of obligations that any school district, the school district included. The obligations we have to a variety of constituents. We talked about some of those tonight related to athletics. Week 9, March 4th, the safety and the security of our students, staff, and public. Among the things that we'll talk about then have to do with cameras. There, I'm sure, is interest in the community about why we perhaps would need cameras in an operating budget, and the goal here would be to talk very clearly about the security that's offered in really one of the most sacred places in any community, which is the place that houses our students for 6 or 7 hours a day and our staff, and how the cameras offer some measure of security for that. Week 10, March 11th, insurance and retirement, the rate setting process and its budgetary impact. Hoping that people understand a little bit more deeply how that process gets set, and how much of that is really out of the control of the school board and district administration, but we have to certainly account for it in the development of the budget. Week 11, March 18th, a conversation, and again, all of this is going to be postings on Facebook relative to personnel costs. Week 12, March 25th, will be a conversation about parking, paving, and safety. We have that particular one item as a warrant, and we want to help the citizens of Merrimack understand with pictorial representation what really we're talking about and how it matters and how it will impact the safety and security of students and staff and the public who use our facilities. Then week 13, April 1st, we're calling it the budget development process, 8 months in the making. We're going to have a pretty strong description of how that process starts in September and how it really doesn't end until the vote in April, and all of the work that goes in to the development of this process and all the care and consideration as reflected in tonight's hearings and multiple questions offered by the board to the presenters tonight. And that's just a small part of what happens, as we all know, in the entire budget making process that, as I mentioned, begins in September. And so we'll talk about that. And then the last week, the day before the vote, a synthesis of everything that relates to the budget that we will provide on the Facebook page on that last day. And again, the goal is to honor the citizens of Merrimack with as much information as we can afford, as we can give them, so that they can make informed decisions about what constitutes the budget that we're asking them to support. Beyond that, we intend to use Facebook now as a tool for communicating on a whole range of additional subjects. And we are going to work as a district leadership team and in concert with the communications committee to make sure that we use it appropriately, but that we do so in a way that enhances communications to our community about the operations of our district, which they have every right to know about. So having said that, I'm happy to take any questions you might have. And after those, then Matt will actually go and describe to you week 1 significant budget drivers, which will be posted on Facebook by the end of this week. So happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. I will go Brandy, Naomi, Andy, so far as what I have.
This isn't really a question, but rather a comment to say that I'm very excited. I think that it's important. Communication is huge, especially when you're dealing with $70+ million budgets, and any information that we can give to our taxpayers to help them solidly understand exactly what's going into it and why it's important that we focus on sort of all the various aspects of each area of the budget is huge. So I am very thankful that you guys are doing this. So,
Naomi?
Same. I think it's a marvelous step. I wanted to add one more layer that it sounds like you began to talk about Facebook is a wonderful place. It's also a privately owned company that can do whatever it likes with material that's put on its site, as it should be able to. I'm wondering whether we shouldn't be thinking about an additional access point for some of the more important things. If there shouldn't either be a blog that's housed.
That's exactly why I said budget blog on my note,
the
so.
website, or some other backup place where people could go for the same information if they're blocked from Facebook, or Facebook takes down a post, or something of that
If
sort.
they're not on Facebook.
If they're not on Facebook, yeah.
So
Thank you. We'll certainly do, the goal is to make it as broadly accessible to people as we can. So we'll certainly do what we can to accommodate that.
Yeah, if I could help out with that. I think the goal is everything that we put on Facebook, we're going to duplicate on our webpage. So there's
Perfect,
a
yeah.
backup to that, because some of the things we're going to be doing, like let's say publishing this file that you're going to see, may be a little bit too big for Facebook to host. So it'll be entitled, it'll be a little bit of an intro, and then hit the link, and then you'll pop right back to the web page. But the good part about the Facebook piece is, you know, when I did an update on the PFOA water filtration system, there were over 4,500 people who looked at that post. I went, my gosh, that's something else, isn't it? And so, you know, you get a lot of response from that. And if they, I guess, like the page or join the page or whatever the heck it's called, you know, they'll get notifications if something is posted on it, if they follow it, right? So that will be good for us, because, you know, the web page is great, but unless you go there every single day to try and find the new thing on it, you're not going to be able to find it. But so Facebook is, and we don't want to wear out the school messenger with emails to everybody, because trust me, we don't want to do that.
you do that
So-
with
Oh,
kids'
no.
backpacks already.
Yes, do that in kids' backpack. So that's the whole Facebook post. Audio files, we want to utilize the TV studio. You know, Justin and I were talking earlier. Mark's pushing me to get on TV and do a budget update or something like that. I think he'll have to come with me for moral support. But, you know, we're trying a multiple approach. We're not saying this is going to be exactly as presented, but, you know, we're going to try. And we're going to try and put the message out there. And we're going to need some help from you guys and other people so we can do mid-course corrections, because we're not above doing mid-course corrections. It happens every single day. It's going to happen this Thursday at 10:30 in the fire chief's office. It's going to be a mid-course correction. So this is what we're trying to do. I think Mark did an excellent job of putting it out there and laying it out there to finally get something on the page and in front of you and doing the presentation.
No, and just to follow up, I think it's wonderful what's happening. And this list of topics put together and the entire presentation is absolutely marvelous. It was a minor point making sure that there's a backup piece.
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so I think I have Andy, Cinda, then back to Brandy.
Sounds like a good, something you could call the budget blog. Could be something you could call it. But anyway. Yeah, whatever. I think this is really good. There's one missing piece. And actually, the first page of what you're going to present around the budget overview, when you, Matt, start to present the slides, raises the point. And sometimes I even get confused, and I've been doing this for a while. When you look at an overall budget overview, and one of the items is federal funds, you say, but we're not paying federal funds. Why is it a cost? So for me, a good topic to have early on in the process is, what is something that we spend, where do we get money in, and sort of that overall thing, because we talk a lot, you know, we talk a lot about funds that are returned to offset taxation. We talk food services listed here, but we know food service sort of pays for itself. So I think a tutorial about money in and out and sort of the basics to educate everybody almost before you get down that path might be.
See, in my quest to tie off everything to a bottom line, because the budget warrant article is going to include two things that don't affect your tax rate. It's going to include federal funds, and it's going to include food service. So you're right. I need to do an explanation on what is he talking about with these federal funds. Are these monies we have to pay are getting taxed on because it's increasing the bottom line of our budget? So yeah, no, that was an excellent comment. When you're in the industry and you're in there, you just tend to no, and you just tend to go with it. Oh yeah, Fed funds. That's all I say. You know, that's because years ago you didn't budget for them, but then DRA cracked down on RSA 32, and they made you budget for federal funds and food service. There's a lot of people who were just running that as a wash through their general fund and not showing it. So.
So, done? Cinda, then Brandy.
With the federal funds, you could even do like a hyperlink on the, and really get fancy. I was just going to say I'm on the communications committee, and I recall, I think we landed that we weren't going to turn off comments on the Facebook, so we didn't have to moderate, or is the intention to leave the comments on? Where did we land on that?
So, I've learned a little bit because, as I said at the communications committee, I am not a Facebooker. So there's a lot for me to learn about that. But what I have learned in sort of studying to engage this is that engagement is the lifeblood of social media, and that I was advised that it would be important to allow engagement to happen so that people could have discussions about it. What that doesn't mean, however, and I think it's important to say this, we are an educational institution. We're not a communications corporation. We don't employ someone, even quarter time, to do this. So this work will be done by people that are currently employed in the district. And so the monitoring of it, I think that's going to be the kind of thing that we're going to have to learn as we go. We will expect that comments are going to be respectful. We certainly will insist that anything that we post is going to be fact-based and would encourage likewise. But I think that that's really something that we're going to have to honestly say is something that we're going to have to sort of see as we go. But my understanding is that the algorithm that drives Facebook movement is based on engagement. And so I think we will remain with comments on and do our best to provide a sourced, verifiable information. And that's just what we're going to do. But I just do, if we're talking about communication, I think it's fair to say what no budget has ever asked for, and this budget doesn't either, is anything to do with a communications moderator. And so this will be serviced on the personnel that we currently have, all of whom, I will say, are, particularly those involved in technology, meaning Nancy Rose, Mark Merrifield, are beyond full-time engaged as it is. So this is an additional item that we're happy to do. And I want people to know that we are not professional communicators. We're educated. And so we're going to do our best.
And so one thing I think we can even take back is, I mean, we have some time too, and everything doesn't have to be ready completely out of the gate, but some rules of the page too, like you said, fact base, we won't tolerate, naming people in our district in a poor and disparaging way on our own page, some things like that might be kind of our rules of engagement for it. But that I would just say that. And then I would also say to my fellow board members, I think that's something that we have to be careful of, because from what I understand, we have been advised to be very careful on social media, and 3 likes could constitute a public meeting. And so something that's about something that we're all very familiar with, I think that we're going to have to think about our rules of engagement for that site too, as to who will post and who will respond, or whether we just leave that for the district and we stay off it with our comments altogether. So I would just say those things, and but I'm excited, and so you're saving me an update when we go through our committee meeting updates later. But I thank you for taking this back to administration, working through all of these details, and I think it looks like we have a good lineup for the community through this budget season.
just to piggyback off of what Cinda was saying relative to the rules, I do think that it would be important to set the tone that we reserve the right to remove inappropriate or disrespectful or anything that names a student or something, that is not deemed as appropriate for what the purpose of the page is, that we reserve the right to remove and delete those comments. And we'll send a follow-up message to that person via email if necessary, letting them know that if they have any comments, questions, or concerns, that the district is more than willing to hear them, but needs to do so in appropriate fashion, and Facebook is not the place to do that. So I would definitely encourage that, but I'm, again, very excited about the direction. The only other question that I have is there a way that we can take the technology that we're utilizing for the Facebook page and the link to the website and utilize our Merrimack app? Because I definitely use our app and go to it as a parent. I think it's important that we also have sort of a way to utilize that option as well. And since they all kind of, I don't know what the relationship is between them, but if there's a way to marry them, it would be fabulous.
See, the good thing about the app, and we haven't really spoken about this, is the app is changing.
I saw. I've got an update.
Okay, get an update. But it's changing because we have become developers now. We've registered with Google, and we put in the application with Apple, and that's almost complete. So we'll have more control over the app. So the app is going to change its look and feel a little bit. We've sat down, Mark Merrifield, myself, Luda, and looked at it. And so now we're going to be the developers of the app, and we can add and change things when we find out how to do that. But before, we had to go back to the company who wrote the app, and that was just too cumbersome. And now we've got control. So yes, the answer is yes. We'll figure that out and do it. Yeah.
And Chris, I believe your hand was up.
Yeah, so when you mentioned Facebook comments, I did a quick Google search and found that there should be some auto moderation tools for comments on Facebook. So like blocking profanity and like removing.
I think when I did it, I blocked profanity.
Yeah.
I think that's on there.
You can probably. I'm not a Facebook user, so I don't know this one. Some other
Of course
apps.
you're not. You're too young.
Yeah. And some other things I have, I can block. I know I can block people who don't have verified accounts and stuff from commenting on my posts. So
Right.
if there's a way you can do that, that might be helpful too.
It's very helpful.
Yeah. No, that'd be awesome.
Thanks, Chris. So with that, I think that's something that will help us in the process. I know last year the one thing that we had was hearings in empty rooms. We didn't hear from our constituents via email, phone, and now, I think this is a different year. I really do. I think it's, exactly what we're looking for. The feedback from those who are, invested in this community to put forth the best budget possible. And this is a great way to do that. So thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing how that vets out in the next few weeks.
So, and part of phase 2 of this is Matt talking about phase 1.
Okay. So on that, I think you have a PowerPoint, and we'll light that up. Thanks. The man behind the curtain.
I don't know what we do without justice. That's all I can say. So this is what we want to put on the Facebook page, and ultimately what I'd like to do is sit down with Justin in the TV studio and introduce this PowerPoint projection, just kind of like I'm doing right now, is an overview of the operating budget, significant items, fixed costs, and maintenance projects that we're dealing with today. And then just kind of start off with showing people the proposed budget, showing them that it is 2.11% over last year's budget, and then making the statement that most of this is really kind of covered by a lot of the fixed costs we had put upon us by items that are contractual in nature or legal in obligation. So I'll just go quickly through this. So you can see that out of the 1.6 million, over 1.7 million right out of the gate is fixed costs from the 1920 budget. We're obligated to provide health insurance. I talk about a little bit about the guaranteed maximum rate and what that is and how that impacts how we budget and how we use it. Talk about the dental insurance, the New Hampshire retirement piece, which is mandatory, we have to pay into, and our transportation contract. And when you add those 1, 2, 3, 4 items only out of a $1.6 million increase, you're over 1.7 right in those 4 items together. So that kind of gives you an idea of how the budget is kind of hamstrung, and it's not a bunch of new things that we're looking for. These are the essential maintenance items that we're talking about. You know, the transformer at Merrimack High School, 1977. The switchgear at the upper elementary school that we're going to have to revisit and take a look at, that was put in 1992. And then I can go on and explain to them what a switchgear is, and, you know, how this one is another federal, am I right, Tom? Federal Pacific? Another Federal Pacific unit, which doesn't have its UL rating anymore. Can't find parts for it. So if it goes, that school's going to be out of power for a while before it can be repaired or replaced. And then the Massacola Elementary School boilers, how these are 2 boilers, and if you have one go down, the backup one won't be able to heat or provide hot water for the school. So basically, it's a process of 1 is none and 2 is 1. So if you have 2, you really have 1 because there's no backup. It's like backing up computer information. And then the roof replacement that we talked about, and then the additional cameras where they go, MES, Muse, Reed's Ferry, and on. And then basically the $1.6 million budget increase includes the 1.7 and includes the 1.2 in essential maintenance items. Now, how do we get to only 1.6? Well, there's 3 positions: a reduction in force in this budget, a reduction in bonded debt, out-of-district tuitions, and the furniture replacement, because we had the kindergarten furniture in the budget, and it's not in the budget this year. The superintendent and assistant superintendent and I were having a conversation earlier in the office about the 3 position reduction in force. And when you look at it over the years, at one point we had 388 teachers in this district. We have 341 now. So therein, over a 15-year period, lies a significant decrease in the number of teaching positions that we have. And if people think that we're not responsive to a slow declining enrollment over the years, there is a fact that says, no, we have been responsible. You just haven't felt that, because we haven't waited to the point where we have a lot of teachers and we make a headline, like Manchester or Nashua, reducing 30 teachers. You know, it's striking, and you think, oh my gosh, look at what Nashua does. Isn't that great? They have declining enrollment and they're just getting rid of 30 teachers. Well, they probably could have gotten rid of those 30 teachers over a 5 to 7 year period and not made a splash and not hurt the district like they're going to. We've done it over a series of years. So there's some information other than what's on the page that we want to get out. But you have the essential maintenance items. I just did kind of a collage That's my artistic side coming out. And then here's a picture of the MHS transformer outside of where the switchgear is. You can see it, and it's battleship gray color, I think that is, with a little green door. That is the unit that we'd be looking to replace that PSNH will own after they replace it on that pad. And then here's the Muse switchgear, installed in '92. Federal Pacific brand, non-UL rating. All the electricians in town will know what that means. The company is out of business. You cannot get parts for that. If this goes, the school goes dark, and if we can repair it or something like that, we can. If we can't, well, there's a consequence for you. These are the two boilers that were installed in around '91, whose life expectancy has been exceeded. The light blue pieces on the front, those are the burners. Those are the gas burners. And I'll put some more information in here saying that I believe these are going to be replaced by convection burners. Yeah, gas convection burners that'll run much more, boilers that'll run much more efficiently. And then here's the roof section that we were talking about, and the board had quite the conversation about, and security cameras, where they're going, and then how the default budget relates to the proposed budget. The default budget is $414,000 less than the proposed budget. So why it's important to vote for the proposed budget? Well, a lot of those essential maintenance items are tied up in the proposed budget. You don't have that, you're going to be missing out on items that could fail or cause us some real issues in the future. So, and then it's just, here's a little thing on how is the default budget calculated. I'm not going to read that, but it just includes items that were passed last year and items taken out of a one-time nature, not likely to reoccur in the future. So basically, that's kind of a snapshot of the information that will go in. And at one point in time, I'll get with the town TV studio. We'll work up a little bit of a script and a narration that will go with this. And someone made mention that I should start it off with, this is an important message from the Merrimack School District, but it's not about snow. See if anybody gets it. So
We do.
yeah, so we'll just try that, and then we'll go from there. I'm not saying it's going to be smooth and it's going to be Hollywood and it's going to be really terrific. It may stumble, it look a little bit rough, but we've got to start someplace, and this is a good place to start. I remember when I first got here 18 years ago, I asked, where's your voter's guide? And Jim O'Neill looked at me like, what are you talking about? We don't do that. And so I just said, I think it'd be a good idea if, what do you think? And so we started the voter's guide like 18 years ago. And then it just kept going and going and going and going. And I see a lot of people with it. I don't know. I don't have any feedback. Is that still a viable document? Is that still something people look at and use? I don't know, but I'm going to continue to do it until I hear otherwise. But there's much more information that we can get out that's in a format that's not the piece of paper that's a flat, one-dimensional item. Multimedia, pictures, voiceovers, sounds, maybe some video. Tom can take us. Yeah, Tom can take us into the boiler room to see I can videotape Tom showing us a boiler and talking about the boiler. He would love to do that, I can tell. So this is all, new to us, but we're going to give it a shot, and we'll see where it lands. Hopefully people will be kind, and we'll be somewhat successful. So that's just my little piece of this right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
I just would want to just draw your attention to just one thing particular that Matt was pointing out, because I think if we're really talking about communication, it matters. Over time, there might be some suggestion that some maintenance items, that need to be replaced, might need to be replaced because perhaps they haven't been cared for well. In fact, the opposite is true. All of the items that you see up there that Matt was referencing in the in his presentation are items that have either exceeded by many years or have reached their life expectancy. But in most cases, they have exceeded. And anybody who owns any kind of property knows that in order to exceed the life expectancy of items like that requires that they have been carefully monitored and carefully maintained. So any suggestion that any items that are in the capital plan or that are in the operating budget this year that have been incautiously maintained, that is just factually untrue, because in some cases we are in excess of 20 years over life, and so that only happens because we have had a really good plan for maintaining them. And so I just think that's important for folks to know.
And I would say that people have come to this, our district has basically shown us, just the kindness of saying how meticulously kept our facilities are. And that it starts at the top, and it goes through every member of that staff. So the maintenance department as a whole has done a very good job making Merrimack a shining star, even when we don't have new facilities like a lot of the schools in neighboring towns do. Ours are definitely in stellar condition, considering, in spite of the ages that they are. So thank you for that. So we know you're going to have we're buttering you up. We know you're going to have a tough budget season with us, but we really appreciate all that you do every day. So are there any other questions or comments from the board? Andy?
So first to your question about the voter's guide. So the town always had like a multi-page voter's guide. We had sort of like a trifold thing, right? I think that by doing this, you leapfrog over what the town does for a voter's guide because you provide a lot of detail and a lot of the background on how things happen. So I think this communication example, as well as all the other flow through that you guys have, will be a good living, much more detailed way to do a voter's guide. I mean, do we need to have a voter's guide? Maybe, but I think the voter's guide, one of the things you should do is point at this, because this is the details that gives you, especially all the blog posts and things like that. Just a couple quick comments on what you presented. So you talked a little bit about the staffing. My suggestion is you wait to go into double dip on that until phase 6 when you talk about staffing impacts and stuff, because I think you teased it, but you had nothing to support your tease, right? About staffing, and we all understand the flow, but I think the details behind it in phase 6 will drive your point home. So my suggestion is maybe you take the thunder there, be there. And the other is a caution. I've been doing this a long time. You've been doing this a long time. You implied in your presentation that you had $1.7 million in fixed cost increase this year alone for personnel and other things, obligations, contract ones. Then you talked about $6 million for essential maintenance items. You have to remember that last year we also had essential maintenance items in there, which were some value. So the operating budget had some number in there that was essential maintenance items. So you can't say that there's $1.6 million in new essential maintenance items without removing what you had in last year's budget, if you tried apples to apples. So it's not as though you have 3 point or whatever the number is together of the added costs that you took down. You really only have 1.7 plus anything incremental that you had over last year's essential maintenance items.
Correct.
So just make sure that you're clear about that when you talk about how you were able to make your operating budget less than the items that you added. That just make sure that you did things that weren't repeated last time.
Yeah, no,
That's
excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on the communication plan. We're going to go on to item number 10, which is the board's response to the New Hampshire School Boards Association proposed resolutions. As I mentioned in our last meeting, as the president of NHSBA, I will be running these meetings, and for that reason, I should not be influencing your discussions tonight, as I, as a board member, led the discussion to come to these resolutions. So I'm going to recuse myself and turn the mic over to Andy at this time.
So hopefully I can do a good job at this, but I'm having done this a few times. So in our packets, we received a copy of all of the proposed resolutions for the School Board Association meeting, which happens in January. Is that what it is? And one of the things we were all asked to do is look at all the ones that were in this list to see if we had any issues with not the resolution, but it's essentially what the School Board Association's recommendation was on it. If we disagreed with any of the things, the bottom line is there were a lot of resolutions this time. I mean, usually you see like 4 or 5 resolutions. There were a whole bunch this time, but many of them either emphasized existing resolutions or talked about removing something that was duplicated. So there was a lot of, I'll use the term housekeeping in this one from my observation. So I guess at this point in time, and I guess, Nam, are you the one you're our representative to this? So I guess the question is, does any of the board members have any disagreement or questions or concerns about the proposed resolutions and the responses of the School Board Association? So seeing none, I think that the action is you representing our board at the School Board Association meetings mean that we have no disagreement with the School Board Association and the resolution stance that they have taken.
Thank you, Andy. Item number 11 is the approval of the December 7th, 2018 minutes. I'll entertain a motion to accept. Made by Andy, seconded by Brandy. You're keeping it interesting tonight with the Andy Brandy thing. Are there any edits? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Abstain? The motion carries 401 with Cinda abstaining.
You sure you don't have any comments on what we said during the meeting or anything?
We're good?
Just checking.
There you go. We're on to item number 12, which is the consent agenda with Mark.
Thank you. On consent tonight is the following educator resignation. Caitlin Harrington, school counselor at Massapequa Elementary School.
Is there a motion? Andy?
I move we accept the consent agenda as read.
Is there a second? Seconded by Cinda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. The motion carries 500. On to item number 13, other correspondence. Is there any correspondence to come before the board? Seeing one?
I had correspondence from several parents about this meeting about the turf field. So sort of in my focal point, having been to one of the meetings, I did receive a few inputs on that, of which I redirected them to this meeting to get more information.
Thank you. Are no other correspondence to come before the board? Seeing none, are there any comments? Andy, you're on a roll.
I'm
Keep
on a
going.
roll. I feel the need to clarify a comment that I made earlier. When Cinda said that she wanted to combine school board and budget committee together, your intent was to combine the schedule so that everybody had a quick glance of everything like this. My initial reaction was the fact that I had always urged that the boards try to work together in terms of budget reviews so that we didn't have to review, ask the same questions multiple times. When I was chair of the budget committee, I used to set up tables in the school board meetings for budget committee members to attend so they could hear things once. Television has changed that a little bit. But I also know the current budget committee likes to keep their autonomy. So for that, I'd just like to clarify my reaction, which was weird. But anyway, but I definitely support your idea of having one common sort of a budget roadmap in terms of what we're doing and the timelines and stuff. So,
Any other comments from the board? I have my usual monthly comment, which is the first day of school. We had 3,853 students. And we now have 3,872 students. So from the first day of school on, we have netted 19 students. So on to the next agenda item, which is new business. Is there any new business to come before the board? Seeing none, We'll go on to committee reports. Are there any committee reports from the board? Naomi, Andy?
The Budget Committee met on December 11th, and we had another illustrious person join our ranks, Carl French, who goes by the name of Lee, put himself forward and was unanimously brought on board.
Thank you very much. Andy?
I went to the monthly meeting of the SRES Board of Directors, where we didn't really talk significantly about we're going to do a little more deep diving into some of the future things that they're going to do. And we talked a little bit more about going forward, the way that the board would be structured, sort of executive planning and things like that. But just so you know, the meetings are still ongoing. Where I participate there as a member of the board and not as a member of the school board in any capacity. And additionally, we had the Planning and Building Committee meeting, which it was a formal meeting. Believe it or not, they had full quorum at the meeting, and that happened on the December 4th, I think it was. Anyway, the intent is to discuss the turf issue, where many of the members that were in the audience here attended that meeting, where we talked about what the Planning and Building Committee had done in the past in terms of research with the turf. They bounced some ideas. It was a really good interactive discussion back and forth between the committees. The Planning and Building Committee is offering support to the parents groups as they need it, as they go through the process. But it was clear, both at our table as well as their table, that it's the parents group that's driving the petition warrant article for this, and both boards will help as appropriate as they go through the process. So that was the Planning and Building meeting.
Okay, I was unable to attend the Healthcare Cost Containment Committee meeting because I had also a planning meeting that afternoon for the New Hampshire School Boards Association Delegate Assembly breakout sessions. So with that, the committee did meet, and they welcomed members from the Oyster River School District who are looking to do a similar committee at their district. And we've done this more than once, where we have fostered a school district who is wanting to establish such a committee and help them to get on their feet and get some ideas. So again, collaboration from the Merrimack School District, helping other districts in the state, and it's the Merrimack way. So thank you for inviting them and keeping the good progress going. So I think this is a great example of a committee in our state in our district that really does help with everything from employee wellness to, I think, controlling the cost for this budget. So as much as one can with things like catastrophic illness, staying on top of wellness, I think definitely is a great value to this district. So thank you for all your work. So again, I did have the planning meeting for the NHSBA. So when I said a breakout session, there's always one breakout session, which is the School Board of the Year, which is Shaker Regional out of the Belmont area. And they will be presenting, but so will our mental health committee regarding social emotional learning in school districts and what the school boards can do to help to support that development of curriculum in the school district to maximize student output and student performance. So they will be presenting at the NHSBA in January. So speaking on behalf of the committee will be the co-chairs John Fabrizio and Julie DeLuca. So that is my committee report, and I will go on to public comments on agenda items, and the public that started in a roar ended in a whimper, so we are an empty room again. So I will, we outpaced it, we totally did. So we will take a moment to sign the manifest, and then I will entertain a motion to go into non-public session per RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, sections A, B, and C. Made by Andy, seconded by Naomi. Brandy, how do you vote?
In favor.
Naomi?
In favor.
Cinda?
In favor.
Andy?
In favor.
And I vote in favor. The motion carries 5-0-0. Thank you and good night.